Looks so nice. Okay, we'll reconvene. Could I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Narenheim,
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein,
Here.
Councilmember Kalajovic,
Here.
Councilmember Obaji,
Here.
Councilmember Barrett,
Here.
Mayor Light,
Here.
I have a quorum.
Let's see, we're coming back from closed session. Anything to announce from closed session?
Yes, two announcements, Mayor. Sean Scully, Acting Community Development Director, joined us for items F4 through F10. And then under item F12, the council unanimously authorized the city attorney to defend the city in the matter.
Okay. So with that, we'll adjourn. We will adjourn to regular meeting. So can I get a motion to adjourn? We got a motion?
Second.
Second. Everybody for?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, so now we're opening our regular meeting. So could I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Narenheim,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein,
Here.
Councilmember Kalajovic,
Here.
Councilmember Obaji,
Here.
Councilmember Barrett,
Here.
Mayor Light,
Here.
no quorum.
Okay. Do we have, if we have any veterans or active duty military in the office, in the audience, please stand to be recognized for your service. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your service. If we could all stand for the salute to the flag, I'd like to call Lorelei up to lead us in the pledge. Whenever you're ready.
Redondo Union High School. I'm so proud
Want
to
to
be,
get closer to the mic?
I'm so proud to be a part of the Redondo Beach community and to be a part of the Redondo Union cheer team. Thank you, Miss H, Coach Izzy, Mr. Saltzman, and Principal Brady for your support and believing in our team. Please place your hand over the heart and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And you have someone who will take a picture, you can come up and get a picture with the council. We'll do it. Oh, yeah, come on. Okay, thanks. How about a round of applause for Laura? Thank you, Laura. I feel like we're in church. Could you all rise for a moment of silence and silent reflection? Okay, thanks, everybody. Okay, so now we're going to go to the section of the agenda where am I here? Doing presentations, proclamations, and announcement. And the first one we'll get to in a second. If you could join me. Right here. Yeah. Okay, today we're here to recognize the varsity game day cheer team who won the 2024 National High School Cheerleading Championship, Division I Large Game Non-Day Tumbling, Game Day Non-Tumbling. So tonight we have is Principal Birdie here tonight? Yeah. Okay, thanks for being here. Not yet. Come on. And we also have coaches Lisa Hedspeth and Isabel Cruz. Is it? Okay, so which one's? Okay, so tonight we're celebrating the historic win for Redondo Union High School. Again, this was for the varsity game day cheerleading competition team who made history at the 2024 High School Cheerleading Championship, which was held at Walt Disney World in Florida. There were 24,949 athletes from 34 states who traveled in February to compete. our game day cheer team emerged victorious with our 23 athletes, being named #1 in the nation. Way to go. And bringing back the division #1 national title in the large game day non-tumbling division. It's a true Cinderella story, as it was a first that time that Redondo competed in this competition. It was also the first time all 23 of these athletes competed on high school competitive cheer team, and it was the first time with our new coaching staff. So congratulations on bringing the national title back to our great city of Redondo. And, so Principal Breedy, could you say a few words?
Mayor Light, thank you. Council members, thank you for having us tonight. Thank you for our board here in RBUSD. I know Byung Cho is here, and our superintendent of schools, Dr. Wesley. Of course, our extraordinary parents, our Redondo community, and of course, our athletes. There's one thing that I want to do, and that is our athletes. Can you just hold your medals and just put them out in front of you? Okay, listen. That is the sound of a national champion team. Please give a round of applause to our athletes. I would like to now introduce Miss Lisa Hedspeth, our coach.
Thank you so much. I can't begin to tell all of you, thank you so much for inviting us here tonight and to represent the great city of Redondo Beach. It was absolutely an honor for the 23 athletes, and many of the parents were able to make this trip with us. And the way that they conducted themselves every day with grace and dignity and just the love of this city and the love of our school was absolutely delightful for my daughter, Coach Izzy, and myself to witness. And for them to just persevere and keep going from prelims to semis to finals. And then they're announcing, and it gets down to the top 3 who are going to medal. And we just can't believe it. They're looking at us, we're looking at them, the parents are looking at us. I'm like, I can't believe it. And then they announce it, and first, and that joy and jubilation, knowing that we would bring this title back here to this city, back to our high school, was absolutely magical. And I cannot thank the parents enough, because it is definitely so important. You are the team alongside the team that makes this work. And I can't thank you enough, Dr. Wesley and Principal Breedy, for allowing my daughter, Coach Izzy, and myself to be just a small part of this journey with our athletes. It's all you, all 23. One day you'll be my age and you'll say, whew, I made it. But then you'll say, I am a national champion, and it's going to feel so good. It's going to feel great. But thank you so much for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And turn around a second. I want everybody to see the back of your jacket. National champions here in Redondo. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to call each of you up one by one. I want you to come up, get your certificate, and then stand to the side. Don't go sit down. Stay up here for a group shot, okay? So the first one, Abby Bruner. Adriana Fernandez. Ava Anzavino. I hope I said that.
Kind of, yeah.
Brooke McCauley. It's okay if you cling. Congratulations. Get front here with us. Cameron Smith. Congratulations. Emma Masako. Aaron Pepper.
Bless you.
Faith Shell. Iris Reyes. Jesse Martin, you're going to force me off the stage. I love the clinking.
Yeah.
Jesselyn Gonzalez. Did you get injured competing? No. Okay. You need help with that? June Bello. Congratulations. Carolyn, is it Nava? Is that an N? We need a bigger stage. Congratulations. Thank you. Is it Nava? Nava, yeah. Okay. Let's see, Lauren Muskowitz.
So many.
Leah Gnat. Okay. Sorry about that. Congratulations. Lorelei Corner. Congratulations. Madeline Haydinger. Congrats, Madeline. Oh, and another, Madeline Williams. Congratulations. Michaela Peterson. We're going to be in the front row soon. Maya Bader. Molly Goper. Maya Murad. Scarlett Dawson.
Thank you.
And Lisa Hedspeth. Congratulations. Oh, we appreciate it. How about one cheer for Redondo here?
Can I ask that you guys get a picture with the council? So I'm gonna go behind because I want a picture with you guys.
Yeah, I'm going to come back up. I'm going to go back up so I can be behind you. Scrunch together. You got to stay up here. Yes. Come on.
You guys show the beautiful, these are stunning.
When you win a national championship.
Bless you. Number one. V for victory.
Coach, was it your first?
The first.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Great
Thank
work.
you.
Great work,
Thanks for
Coach.
bringing home the victory.
What's that?
There goes the whole.
I need it. I won't touch it. I look over and I see red. I'm like, maybe when you reached over to give me the light.
I wondered why you were moving front and I just saw how they were sit.
Yeah, there were so many of them.
Where is everybody? Okay, so back to the meeting. We're at approve the order of the agenda. What I'd like the council to consider is moving item G up because we have some guests from the Air Force Base here.
So moved.
And three.
Where?
That one's N3.
Well, G first because we have to get any of the public comments that were submitted, right?
J or J? Wait,
Blue
where,
folder.
where would you like to put item N?
Let me go through this. Item G, then N3, then F, H, N2, N1, and P.
What,
I want to move the
what do you want to do consent calendar?
consent calendar is H, so that's after.
What I
I want to do
understand.
G, blue folder items, N3, which is the shooting range, F, then H, which is consent calendar, then N2, I want to pull the DD discussion so it's not 11 at night, and then N1 and
All
then
right.
P.
So moved. There's clearly thought into this.
So
Second.
we have a motion and a second, all four?
Aye.
Okay, so with that, we will get into item G.
Announcements.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
Yeah.
Announcements from the council, so Councilmember Narenheim.
Yeah, I was at the Sunset Riviera Little League a few weeks ago, actually in beginning March 9th is the second, third Saturday. And I wanted to give a shout out to just the Little League because the Little League there, Sunset Little League in Alta Vista Park, raises a ton of money for the park and park improvements, and they donate a ton of time. But I also want to give a shout out to our public works that works there. I know Mike Klein has been working hard with the Sunset Little League. We allocated a bunch of money for fences and backstops, and they got all that work done just in time. The fields look fantastic. The new gates look fantastic. There's a bunch more stuff that needs to get done there, but the fields were just falling apart, and it's really cool to see literally probably a couple thousand people there. Took me a good half mile, 3/4 of a mile to walk into the place. I got there at 8:15. The thing didn't start till 8:30. It was just flooded with people, and we had a fire department there show up later on. So really, really cool. Really big thank you for that. Another big thank you to the city clerk's office. I was on the agendas page. And on the agendas page, under how to go to the agendas and how to watch and where to e-comment and past archives, you cleaned all that up to different logos. It's really simple now. You go there, you look at it, oh, I want to do this, boom, archives this. So big kudos, big thank you. I was there today. I looked, oh, this is different. This is nice. Love to get the archive videos if we can on there sometime, but it's a different ask. And then the last thing I have here is the Mayor Bill Brand, the Great Redondo Beach Paddle Out is May 11th at 11 a.m. Mark your calendars. Flyers will be going out probably tomorrow for that. We got the Beaches and Harbors permit pulled and paid and done. This is working on it with the city. City's pretty much done at our city meeting. We're all good with that. So mark your calendars. We'll have a lot of rentals from Olympus down there, so you can get on a board if you want, or get on the pier. And so it'll be a really cool time. We'll have a picnic in the park afterwards, make it kind of a fun event. So it'll be really, really cool. So that's May 11th. Those were my
What time, where?
11 a.m. at Veterans Park. Great question. At Veterans Park, we'll be meeting just on the north side of the old library at that roundabout. We'll be sending a flyer out to have that. Check-in starts at 9:30. We'll be able to buy leis for $20. And then we'll have a meeting at 11 o'clock. Then we'll all head out to form a big circle. We'll have Harbor Patrol, Baywatch lifeguards there, and have a big boat there, big ceremony. It should be a lot of fun.
Thank you. Councilmember Lowenstein.
Thanks, Mayor Light. Two things. One is we had a District 2 community meeting last Tuesday. I want to thank Mayor Light for being there. He was a great guest. a lot of fun. We got to know Mayor Light personally as well, so.
You asked tough questions.
Yeah, I did. Like, what was your favorite book? So, the second thing is, I had the privilege yesterday of joining Rabbi Yossi Mintz at the grounds of the Friendship Campus. For those of you that don't know, that will be it's at the corner of Ralston and Inglewood. And you don't see a lot now, but they're erecting a steel structure. It is going to be fantastic. It will really uplift the area, although the area is great as it is, but it will really be iconic. Gensler is a world-famous architect, designed the building. And it is going to be not only iconic for our city, but the entire South Bay. You have a lot of architectural magazines that are already interested because of the design. And, I think it's great for the youth of our community. So for those of you who are interested, Google Friendship Campus, Redondo Beach. You'll see the drawings there. It's spectacular. So I'd highly recommend doing that. And thank you, Rabbi Mintz, for all you do for our community. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kalijerovic.
Yeah, just couple announcements. By the way, that's my neighborhood. It is going to be amazing. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
I attended the Cal Cities policy meeting in Burbank on March 22nd. I participated in the environmental quality policy meeting, learned a lot, met a lot of great folks all around the region. We also had a great turnout for our joint community meeting hosted with Councilman Obaji. Thanks for bringing the donuts. That was great. We learned a lot about the Phase 2 of South Bay Social District. There must have been over 60 people there, much more turnout than I thought would be there. It was great to see so much interest in the project. Really looking forward to that. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Obaji.
Thank you, Councilmember Kalijerovic, for bringing the coffee. Some people can operate without donuts. Some can't operate without their coffee. So yes, very pleased with the turnout. Thank you, District 3, District 4 residents for coming out and asking good questions of the Galleria redevelopers, El Catterton. That is exciting, and it should be hitting our planning commission this month, hopefully. Other than that, I wanted to say we had a very interesting General Assembly at the South Bay Council of Governments talking about AI in government. So one great use of AI is if you had a passage and you wanted to say it in English, if I wanted to also say it in other languages, my announcements, the AI would translate it and repeat it out in that different language for us. So a lot of good, useful uses of AI coming about.
Yeah, but you don't know what it was saying.
Yeah, you're not sure, right? Yeah, if you don't speak the language, you don't really know what it's saying. So, and it could be manipulated. So that was great. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Barron.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a wonderful time at the League of California Cities Housing, Community, and Economic Development Policy meeting recently. And I wanted to thank the Artesia Councilmember Ali Taj, and in particular, I want to thank Councilmember Nils Narenheim for supporting me to be on that committee and to represent Redondo Beach. I also wanted to thank the Office of City Attorney Heidi Feldstein Soto and her Special Assistant Kevin James for taking some additional time to meet with me and speak with me about AB 2230. Thank you for that. And I wanted to make an announcement. We are going to have the District 5 community meeting. It's going to be May 1st at the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center. It's going to be open to everybody. We are going to have a special guest. It is going to be City Attorney Mike Webb. So 6 o'clock, May 1st at the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center. We will see you then. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any announcements today.
Mayor, may I just do a shameless plug real quick?
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Councilmember Kalijerovic.
I see there are some students in the audience. Just so you know, we have a youth commission that needs to be filled. You can earn a civic seal of engagement on your diploma. If you want one of these, I'm going to leave it with the clerk.
Yes, sign up. We need you. Okay, with that, we'll jump to item G if you're following in the agenda. The G is the blue folder items. Do we have any blue folder items?
Yes, Mayor, we do. We have H15, approve the legal services agreement with Covington and Burling LLP for legal services and add this firm to the city attorney's approved law firm list. And that includes an administrative report, agreement, firm information, and Abigail O'Brien's biography. We also have item G1, public participation on non-agenda items, public comments. And last, item N3, discussion and possible action regarding the Redondo Beach Police Department Shooting Range Capital Improvement Project. And that includes a letter of support from the LA Air Force Base, letter of support from the Naval Weapons Station, Seal Beach. And that concludes blue folder items.
Okay, thank you. Motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all for?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll jump to item N3, which is the shooting range.
We're having a little bit of trouble getting the slides up, so Charles will work on that. But I'll introduce this before we get started. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This item is before you tonight as a continuation of the city's consideration of improvements to the shooting range currently located on Barrel Avenue. Several years ago, the city engaged in studies to understand what it would cost to improve this facility. Over the last couple of years, the city has been focused on a small modular facility until last year when a grant became known and the council asked the engineering division to look at costs related to a full-scale facility as well as a modular facility. So we're back tonight with those results with some costs for the options that we've been looking at. There's also Chief of Police is here to talk about needs. We have members of the Los Angeles Air Force Base here to answer questions or also speak on this topic. And we have the architect who helped us with this preliminary work here with us tonight to answer questions as well. With that said, I think our slides are up, and I'm going to turn it over to Charles Etter, one of our engineers in the department, to lead us through a presentation of the slides that we have for you tonight.
Nice stall, Andy.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. This item is the Redondo Beach Police Department shooting range. Just to give an overview, this is the existing condition of the shooting range now. It's on Beryl Street, adjacent to Dominguez Park, between Flagler Lane and 190th Street. It is co-located with our Parks Department and their offices and their warehouse. And as you can see, it's an open-air shooting range. Just to give a little background, the current open-air shooting range was built during the 1950s. On October of 2017, City Council received and filed a report studying the replacement for the existing range. Due to the high costs, staff was directed to explore a reduced modular option. And we did that. And on June 2023, during the review of the CIP program, a potential grant opportunity through a partnership with the US Air Force Base or Los Angeles Air Force Base was brought up. Staff was directed to perform planning and pre-engineering work for these two options, and that's what we're here for tonight. So the first minimum concept that we looked at with a 4-lane modular unit would have some work just within the footprint of the existing shooting range. Is a smaller footprint, but there would be site preparation, connection utility connections, and a smaller foundation within that footprint of the existing range. And that was estimated at about $5.42 million. We looked at another option which would take up the entirety of the existing shooting range, and it would be a 7-lane modular unit, and that would be about estimated at a little over $6.5 million. Just to give an example, these are how the modular units look like from the exterior. One with 4 lanes up to 10 lanes and so forth. This next concept was the one that we would partner with LA Air Force Base This would require meeting some federal requirements. For this concept, you would have to demo pretty much a majority of the site because of all the requirements in the rooms that they need. It's a minimum 7-lane facility and 50 meters long. We would, because the existing range is co-located with the Parks Department, we would have to relocate that warehouse, which is shown in the yellow. And the full price of this would be $17.18 million. Because there is a opportunity for a federal grant program, the city would potentially just pay 30% of that. So it's broken down on the bottom there. 12 million may be used from the grant and 5.1 would be city funded. And this is just an example of the layouts that we have that shows where the requirements are. You need a classroom, you need restrooms, and all those other rooms are required for a minimum federal small arms facility. This is another example of, at least an example of something that would be a facility from the ground up with a classroom, and something that our consultant previously did for another city. The current project funding we have for this project, for the CIP anyway, is that right now currently at $545,000, and we are here to ask for your direction on how we proceed from here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do have a couple questions I'll open up if you all don't mind. So Chief, you showed me the range just the other day. Thank you for the tour. I appreciate that. You showed me how you can drive vehicles onto the range. None of these options appear to afford that capability. Is that?
No, my understanding is that we actually can bring vehicles and other types of equipment onto the range. There's actually an access point on the large scale one.
Can you point that out?
It says vehicle entrance. It's in between.
Oh, I see it. So
Yeah.
you drive in from the front and then
Right. So,
Okay.
and this is for the largest option that
Right.
involves redevelopment of the
the
entire
smaller ones
site.
you couldn't.
Smaller ones that wouldn't be an option anymore. So it would limit the tactical options from the training capabilities, which we explained a little bit of that. But that is an advantage because it allows us to create training scenarios that are more real life and better prepare our personnel for the field. So this full scale option in partnership with the military does present that option for us.
And they're all the same length, is that? You went through it pretty quick there. They're all the same length, it's number of lanes and then the complexity of the accessory.
I believe the number of lanes is different, but
One had 4, but 2 of them had 7.
correct. And then they're both around that 50-yard range, which is about what our range is now.
Okay, and from what it looks like here, for the price of a modular range under this, from a city's funding perspective, we could redo the park facilities and the shooting range for essentially the same cost.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, the upside with the partnership project is you would have a rebuilt site in general.
And we must be consolidating the park department's buildings, right? Because there's
Into
two
one
buildings.
structure, yes.
And
That's the goal.
we validated you can still park all the vehicles and everything that are.
I believe that's the case. I'll let the engineers confirm.
We did our best to get the same square footage of building out there, but we haven't actually done the parking study there. It's tight now. It's going to be tight in the future. Yeah.
Okay. Which is your preferred?
Well, my preferred is the partnership with the military because it provides for a state-of-the-art facility that has classroom and also, quite frankly, after having worked for the city for 30 years, I think it's exciting to see the potential upgrade to the entire property and the Parks Department facilities. But a facility like that would allow us to conduct training without any limitations, days of the week, hours of the day, and truly assist us in keeping our police officers as well prepared as possible to provide service.
And you've spoken with the Air Force representatives and you could work out a schedule for mutual use of the facility?
That would not be an issue, especially based on where the location is, because there would be no requirement to enter into any like police department facility, so they could have unrestricted access. And I do not think that there would be any issues whatsoever in coordinating a schedule between the different agencies to make sure that everybody got all the training time that they needed.
Is there any cost to the Air Force after facilities built for operations?
Well,
Or haven't you worked that out yet?
yeah, we have not worked that out yet. I think that the maintenance costs, that would have to be determined after we decide exactly what facility we're going to do, because there would definitely be HVAC cleaning issues. There's filtration, there's mining of the projectiles out of the trap. There'd be a variety of things that would need to be done. We currently have a budget for maintenance of our existing range, so I think it would just depend on the type of facility that we end up installing and what the maintenance would include.
Okay. Do you think, is there grant money out there to get the city funded portion of this?
Well, I'm sure there's grant money out there, but I'm not sure exactly which grant. We'd have to see what opportunities would be available.
Okay, so are you proposing we eat this out of our own budget, or are you, what's your ask here? Are you asking us to approve 5 million expenditure from our?
No, we're not at that point now. This tonight is really to flush out the two options and understand what the cost of this project would be going forward, either under a go-it-alone model or a partnership model. Looking at the data, it looks like the partnership model is in our best interest, because we would also see the upgraded site for the park's purposes at other expense. The challenge we face here is we don't have $5+ million available. I don't foresee us having $5+ million available as part of the proposed 24-25 capital improvement program. So we would need to identify some type of alternative supplemental funding source to provide our 30% match. I think it's a great project. I think there are wonderful benefits to operations both in the police department as well as our park services functions, but we don't currently have the funds needed to advance this project.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I've gotten emails on this. Why can't we use a range from another city or another facility?
We explored that, in fact, and I'll let the chief talk about that. We
Sure,
approached
so-
Torrance specifically about that concept.
There's not too many ranges close by that actually can meet our capacity. We have 100+ people that have to qualify on a monthly basis, as well as the SWAT team training, concealed weapons permit qualification, Citizens Academy, et cetera. So we have quite a demand for the facility. So I reached out to the Torrance Police Department and spoke with their chief and asked about the possibility of it. And he replied that they had tried that in the past. I believe he said it was with the Marshal Service, and it didn't work because of the access to the facility. The range is in the basement of their station. It was difficult to provide access for people that are armed to walk through their facility. They had significant scheduling issues to make sure that the 200+ officers in Torrance, combined with the Marshal Service, all had the adequate training time, and then that agreement ended up ceasing to exist. And he did say that if there was construction going on, that we could probably work something out on a short-term basis, but a long-term permanent agreement was not likely.
And what about like Manhattan or?
Manhattan has a similar setup, smaller range that's inside their facility. Hermosa's range is way too small to accommodate us, and there really isn't any other range close by. One of the advantages of having the range in the city is the officers can qualify when they're on duty. So it limits our expense, and also if an incident occurs, they're able to immediately respond back out to calls for service.
And I don't think the public understands the training requirement with live fire. Can you just give us a 10-second
There are certain
overview on that?
qualifications that are required by the state in order just to maintain certification as a police officer. And that's one level. But one of the things that we have in Redondo Beach is excellent training. And I think that not only prepares us to provide outstanding service, it's also an incredible recruitment tool, because we really pride ourselves not just in qualification, but also in the training aspect of it. So being able to provide situations that simulate real life scenarios as closely as possible, keep people as well prepared as they can possibly be. It's almost impossible to recreate the stress of an actual deadly force incident in a training environment. But we do everything that we can to create actual training scenarios as opposed to just qualification, standing and shooting a firearm at a static target, so that we can try to recreate that stress, that adrenaline rush, affect the fine motor skills, so that we can have officers that are prepared. Having a facility like this would allow us to keep doing that.
What's the bare bones minimum, though, to meet the state requirements?
It might actually be down to once every 6 months. But
Once what? Shoot a gun once, or
there's a qualification course.
30 rounds, or?
Something like that, about once every 6 months. And And some departments are doing that. The sheriff's department has a lot of people to qualify, and I believe that they've reduced their qualifications down to every 4 months. They used to qualify in semi-trucks that they would haul around from station to station, and then they had a bad fire back in October, and we reached out to them and asked what the status was, and they said they've discontinued the use of all those. And we were informed that ATF is doing an investigation just in the use of those trailers as a qualification platform. But the problem with that is sure, you're going to meet the state minimum and you're going to qualify and you're going to be able to continue to serve as a police officer. But is it good training? I don't think so.
Okay. Can I invite our 2 members of the Air Force Base to come up? And please introduce yourselves.
Hi, sir. I'm Mia Walsh. I'm Colonel Mia Walsh. I'm the installation commander at Los Angeles Air Force Base.
I am Lieutenant Colonel Burden. I'm the Security Forces Commander, which is the police commander for LA Air Force Base.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Can you tell us why the Air Force is interested in teaming with us here?
Sure. So I took command at the base in July of 2022, and when I got here, I realized that we had a need for a base that was closer. So right now, our security forces members fire at March Air Reserve Base, and that's about 75 miles away. So it can take our security forces members out for a day, sometimes 2 days, depending on the drive time and when they can return from training. So we looked into building a modular fire range. Lieutenant Colonel Burden was the commander up at Thule, Greenland, and so he built an indoor firing range up there. So we looked at doing that on our base in our parking lot. However, then I learned about the Defense Community Infrastructure Program, which is the grant, and it's designed to address deficiencies within a community that support a military installation in order to enhance military value, installation resilience, and military family quality of life. So when I looked at the grant program in 2022 in Virginia, Joint Base Langley Eustis received $7.6 million to build a brand new training and firing range. And that's when I thought this would be perfect for the South Bay area. So I immediately asked them to send me the package that they submitted, and we've met with El Segundo Police Department, Torrance Police Department, Harbor Police, the Torrance Chamber of Commerce, as well as U.S. Naval Weapons Station Seal Beach and the Coast Guard Training Center at Terminal Island. And Los Alamitos to discuss this project. So there is a great need in the South Bay area for this type of firing range. There is not one in existence that can fire the capacity that this range would bring to the area in order to meet the needs of law enforcement, the military in this area, as well as TSA, because TSA does a lot of U.S. Marshal training here. So we really believe that we have an extraordinary opportunity to partner with the city, and we would love to do so in the future. And also while I'm here, let me just add, because I'm changing command in a couple of months, but it's been my great honor to be here. And I just want to thank the city of Redondo Beach for all of the support, especially Councilmember Kuludrovich. Thank you so much for all your help with housing. We always kind of tout Redondo Beach as one of the great supporters of the base. You know, we're really happy with all the improvements you made to the website to make military members feel welcome and that really want to live in your area. So thank you very much.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm former military from that base, so.
Oh, great.
Yeah, dated 1994, so.
Okay.
Well, long before Space Force, and I see I misquoted, you are a Space Force member.
I am a Space
Guardian,
Force member.
right?
A Guardian.
Yes.
As of 4 years ago.
Well, thank you both for your service. Did you want to add something?
And for just to echo what the chief is saying, in the South Base, there's limited shooting ranges in general. That before I was in Thule, Greenland as a commander, I sat on a center for the Air Force where we explored all the ranges. We racked and stacked condition codes, usability, what we needed in order to have a range to get effective training. So what we would do, we would look to a community like this and say, hey, you don't have a range or you need a range, we'll pay for a new one, or we'll tell you to go find another one. We explored every tool we had in the South Bay looking for a place to go fire. March is still what we got. So just the same as the chief goes, we have minimal requirements. We have requirements we'd like to get after, because nobody wants the minimum guy. The airline pilot who flies the minimum number of hours. You want the guy that's proficient. Right now we are like bare minimum. I mean, I do a lot of simulator training. I do a lot of electronic means in order to do some additional training versus live fire, because you can't replicate live fire. And also making live fire a little bit more advanced and then getting a little bit more reactive is tough to do. With indoor range, from the open air range that you have now, you're able to do training around the clock, 24/7. So you're talking about usability. You got 24/7 usability. Also, the environments you want to train in, nighttime, darkness, adding elements of police lights and sirens without disturbing the local area. You can do that all day, every day. You don't get rained out, you don't get snowed out here, but you don't have those issues. So, but that's really what he's getting after, just to echo how much of a force multiplier it turns into. So, over.
Okay, thank you.
Just have one question for them.
Okay, we have,
Commander, Colonel Walsh, can I ask one question, please?
Of course, sorry.
So we discussed, you had a question about operating costs. Going forward, would there be an opportunity to do like an MOU with the base for ongoing operating costs shared?
Definitely, and I don't think that's just with our base, that's also with Los Alamitos, that's also with Seal Beach. So they don't have a range either, and neither does Terminal Island, so.
okay.
So from the center that I worked at before, when we would tell the local area to go find a solution, there's always funding. We're funding ranges. Part of the solution that came out of the center where I worked at, we would give money for things like this. We're like, hey, go find your partnership, and we're going to give you $100,000 a year to go pay your tab at the shooting range, or what if, just for example. So there is a means and a mechanism for us to work that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
While we've got our colonels up here, I've got some speakers, speakers from the podium here. Councilmember Narenheim, do you have any questions for our military members here?
I did, but I don't, I mean, you caught me off guard because I wasn't looking at that. You just said capacity. Can you define capacity? Is that volume, numbers of people, or what is capacity?
So throughput, how many people can you get qualified on a range? So on your current daytime range, I mean, you're limited to the types of fires you can do at certain times a day. So your firing day for us might come out during the day, you do some range time, but you got to wait for it to get dark because you have other requirements you have to hit. So now you've just taken an entire day up. You could have had more folks getting their time in, really.
So you're not talking about capacity in terms of rifle versus pistol, just in terms of usage of number of people and the type of training?
Yeah, throughput. I mean, the rest of the part of the range is, does it accommodate the weapon systems that you're firing? For us, our requirements were ensuring that we could fire the M4, M9, or M18 now, and then shotgun fire as needed. The distance of it was being 50 meters completely revolved around the distance for our M4. And also, when you're doing more training environment, a little bit more distance is better, especially when you're doing pistol qual. You want to have that way you can bring a vehicle in, you can do some.
M4 is a rifle, for those that don't know.
Yeah. I'm sorry, yeah.
Or M18. So rifle 50 yards, and then pistol 25.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Abaji, did you have any questions for the military?
Not for the military.
Okay,
Thank you for your
let me
service.
skip you for now, if you don't mind.
No.
Councilmember Lowenstein, did you?
Same, not for the military.
Okay, anybody else have questions for the military? Okay, thank you very much, and thanks for your service. So I apologize, I have one last question, and it's from what they discussed. What is the sound attenuation of these enclosed firing ranges?
I don't have that information.
Could I invite our architect, Jack, to come up and answer that?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council member, and all the audience. Well,
what's your name? So we
my
can
name
get
is
it for the...
Jack Panichappan. I'm the principal architect at Gillison Panichappan Architects in Newport Beach.
Okay, thank you.
So when we do the indoor range, all the baffle that we have, normally in front of them is a sound attenuation as well. So the sound, from the shooting from inside is pretty much covered. Even all the door, that we have before you walk to the range is always a chamber, to screen the sound off and so on. So you might hear the clink, because, the bullet trap is the battle as well. So you might hear the clink a little here and there, but typically, the sound from the fan, that come out, like industrial fan, kind of like a background noise to absorb everything.
Do you know what
out.
the dB is, the sound is?
I don't know the exact number, but the one that they showed before that's in the city of Westminster, that one's the next door to the Buddhist temple.
So I'm pretty sure it sounds bare minimum, for that situation. Okay.
Thank you. And I apologize for jumping in front of y'all. So Councilmember Narenheim, did you have anything?
All good. Yeah, I got a bunch of questions, actually. So staff report we talked about this in 2017, October 2017. Has anything changed? Have we met since then?
Not specifically. What we had is a couple of capital project conversations since that time, and I think it was really the last one where we made clear we've got to make decisions here on how we want to proceed with scope, and the council made a very specific choice to fund pre-design work for us to effectively look at these options, and that's what we're doing here today.
Okay. And so you guys engaged the grant writing firm we hired in 2023 budget cycle to do this?
No, we haven't done any formal grant writing at this point. We've done preliminary work to work with the Air Force to understand the grant requirements, to see if we'd be eligible.
We talked to the grant writing firm on this.
And we're fairly confident we'd be successful in obtaining the grant if we were to pursue it. But before doing that, out of fairness to all parties involved, we wanted to understand what our local requirements were and whether or not we have the capacity to fund and meet those obligations. And that's really what this exercise has been about.
Okay, because I went back to the 2017 meeting to look at the range that was proposed back then, and that was the, what do you call it? So the PowerPoint said 8 shooting lane minimum. Now we're down to 7. And it was 9.9 million. And now we're up to 17 million and change and 7 lanes.
Yeah, I think a couple different assumptions there. Andy could probably speak to the specifics, but I believe that was without, at the time, Air Force requirements for ancillary offices, storage areas, security, and the like. And I think without us also needing to rebuild and relocate the park services functions, as I recall. I don't know if Andy.
No, that's correct. And of course, 2007, a lot's happened. 17, I'm sorry, a lot of inflation, et cetera, especially pandemic-related spike in costs, et cetera. So yeah, I was here for that conversation. 8 was, I think, the number that the police department was targeting. 7 is actually the standard, the minimum standard, and then groups of 7 for the military related. So it's 7 or 14 or 21. So we chose 7 because that fit the site the best.
Now, so this military firing range that we want to spec out and build to military requirements, that's at the high end, the $17 million. If we build our own civilian police department version, that's going to be at $5 million and change, $5.5 million and change, right in there.
That's just the ranges, the modular units for the ranges. So no classrooms, no range master, no new gun shop, no any of the other things that are included in the fully built out version.
Right. So to that point, one of the things that was talked about in 2017 was a range master. Have we talked about at all what the funding requirements and maintenance requirements of a facility like this are going to be, with staffing, with getting rid of the lead, getting rid of all of that? I mean, what's the ongoing cost for something like this? It's not going to be cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to assume there'd be increased operational cost with a new facility of this size and scope, both on a janitorial basis, an operational basis. I think the trap cleaning and the range master component from a staffing standpoint, I think is already included in operations. I don't think we'd have much of a change there per se. Balancing and partnering with the Air Force and other agencies creates perhaps new requirements from an administrative standpoint. Those would likely be offset with any kind of an MOU or partnership agreement. But yes, we would have increased utility costs and janitorial costs associated with a facility like this. Ideally, we would fund those through the partnership agreements and with our current resources.
So, and the October 2017 report talked about how the range current range is used approximately 5 times a month, and all fire range equipment and ammo is stored on site. So we're currently using a range 5 times a month. So we want to build this range and to use it 5 times a month?
Well, we're probably using it more than 5 times a month now because there's been some case law changes and concealed weapons permits. So we're doing a lot of citizen qualifications at the range, which is taking a significant amount of time. However, we're using it 5 times a month right now because we have such strict limitations on when we can use it. We never use it when school's in session. We never use it past 9 p.m. We never use it on Sundays. We never use it on holidays. And that costs us more money because we have to pay more officers overtime to come in on days off to qualify on one of those days. With the flexibility of 24/7 operations, we'd be able to expand the qualification timeframes. And all of our range instructors, it's a collateral assignment. So they all have other jobs, detectives, patrol, et cetera. And then they also work as range instructors. So with a facility like this, we may have 10 range days and we'd actually reduce personnel costs by cutting overtime.
You know, live fire training is extremely important. I watched a sheriff's video the other day of a sheriff's shooting. There were 1, 2, 3, like six sheriff's officers. They all unloaded their handguns. And I think the assailant had one slight wound to his left hand, I think it was. And what's concerning to me is when you have 6 officers, you know, we're on the council, we're responsible for everything that comes out of that gun, right, where it goes. What's concerning to me is what happens to that bullet afterwards, right, where it goes, the backdrop. The training is important, but what are we doing to use de-escalation and to prevent suicide by cop and to prevent and use non-lethal force rather than lethal force?
Sure, we have lots of, we don't call it non-lethal, we call it less lethal because it could still be lethal, but we have lots of less lethal options. The tasers, we have 40 millimeters. We have weapon systems that use less than lethal projectiles, and we're constantly engaging in training that allows us to do that. We do have what's called a FATS machine. It's a firearms training simulator that has weapons that cycle with air and also has taser and OC spray, certain things like that that are actually scenarios where the officers engage and make contact, make comments, and then the scenario can be adjusted by the instructor based on how the officer reacts. One thing that we're also evaluating now is a VR device that we're actually having come out for a demo. We spent about a year looking at different models out there, and we have finally settled on one that we want to have come out for a demo. In fact, interesting timing, but I actually asked to have that set up today is when I requested it so we can have it with the range instructors. So de-escalation is, there's a lot involved in it. It has to do with communications training, understanding less than lethal options, and also engaging in ongoing training so that we're reinforcing what true de-escalation is and an understanding of the laws and really the impacts of using any type of force. So using a firearm is in the most extreme circumstances. But when we have to use a firearm, we have to be confident. And the only way to be confident is when the training is exceptional. Right now, Redondo Beach Police Department provides exceptional training in all areas, including in firearms. And a facility like this will allow us to keep doing that. And furthermore, quite frankly, we would benefit from a partnership with the military because I'm sure that there would be a lot of joint training that occurs where our instructors would be able to work with the military personnel and the military instructors would be able to work with our personnel, and we'd be able to learn new ideas, get exposed to new concepts, and it would just cause us to be even further prepared.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing more virtual training or doing the FOSS training that you had us do with the CO2 pistols.
Yeah, that's right, you've done that.
That was, that type of training to me is far more educational beneficial on a consistent theme. Using a live fire weapon is good, but a consistent follow-up to that is doing like what Torrance only qualifies, I believe, every couple of months. To the question, this is a lot of money we're asking to put here, Mr. City Manager. So, I showed pictures a few months ago of our fire department, Station 1 and 2. It's the report here says built in the 1950s, this range. It was actually built in 1947 and has some minor upgrades since then. But our fire stations 1 and 2 were built in 1958. Manhattan Beach just rebuilt their second fire station, which was built in 1960, I think it was, 58, 60, 60, 62, right in there. And that cost them $10 million. We have on the strategic plan here, from November, the last update that I could find there was renovations and replacement city buildings, provide a report to the city council on options and costs for renovation and replacement city center facilities on target for February 2024. So we haven't had that discussion yet.
Correct.
And we need to look at that. You know, the school district is looking at bonding, from last numbers I heard, $389 million. If we wanted to go down this path, we need to start looking at all of our facilities, including our fire department facilities that can't house women right now. And that to me is a huge issue. If we want to provide exemplary service and recruit exemplary people, we have to have renovations and facilities on par with Manhattan Beach. And I mean, our city hall here, I can go back to the windows. They're literally falling out of the frames. So before we start going down this path, I'd love to partner with the military. It'd be great. You're going to pay 70%, but there's still a remaining $5.5 million plus, you know, maintenance and everything else. I think training is good, but I think there's a big gap there between us being able to fill that 5 million, 5.5, whatever the number is, and the maintenance of it, range master, disposal of lead, all that. A lot of things we got to work out, in addition to all the capital equipment that we have here in the city, from, you know, the fire department costs, city hall costs, and public works yards. I mean, everyone always forgets public works. Public works down on Gertruda there, and the public works yard at this location just needs a complete redo. So I wouldn't be comfortable. I get the training. I fully agree. You know, using a firearm is a method of last resort. Need to train on that consistently, constantly. It's not easy to shoot a target. I get it. But we have a lot of other renovations and replacements of city buildings right now for me that I'm looking at that I can't, you know, go down the path and support this $5 million infrastructure for military level of investment. I mean, if we can get them to say you're going to, you know, pay costs afterwards, and we can have agreements, then I think we're good. We're much better path. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nils. Councilmember Nierenheim. Councilmember Obaji.
Sure. Chief, when I did the dispatch center tour, I was witness to a call where somebody called the dispatch center to say that they were going to start firing at the shooting range. Is that a normal practice, and why does that occur?
We do that because it's an open air range, and right now it creates a lot of noise in the community. So anytime we're going to have training at the range, we make sure we notify dispatch, create an incident, we contact Torrance, so that if anybody calls about the sounds of gunfire, there's a high likelihood that we can tie it into the training that we're conducting and not some actual incident that's occurring in either city.
And what hours of the day are you able, during a typical weekday when school's in session, are you able to, are your officers able to train inside the facility currently?
On weekdays, typically we start training at 3 p.m. and finish by 8 p.m. and then they'll do a little bit of cleanup. And on Saturdays, they'll start at 8 a.m. and finish by 1 p.m. And usually all the training occurs within those hours, only on those days.
And not on Sunday?
Never on Sundays, never past 9 p.m., never on holidays.
So 5 hours, 5 days a week. And then on Saturday, I'm sorry, how many hours?
Usually it's about 5. It's 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. is the typical time frame. I mean, we could expand that a little bit, but that's the general time frame.
For 100 sworn officers?
Correct.
All right. So in my opinion, the current facility is totally inadequate. It's so basic. I fired, when I was in the Citizens Academy, I fired a couple rounds there. And I don't think it gives the officers the best opportunity, most flexible opportunity for training. I don't think it serves as an attraction for new officers who want to potentially join, look at Redondo Beach, to come to Redondo Beach. I think everything else about our department does, but that shooting range certainly isn't one of them. And I would like our officers to continue to be the best and to be joined by the best. And for that reason, I would support moving forward with the Air Force. One question I have on the subject is, there's a split in terms of our contribution of over $5 million. Is that because we have a park services building on the site? And if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have the $5 million contribution? Or as part of the partnership, there is a local contribution?
Well, I think there's both are true in this case. There's a 30% match, as I understand it, that's part of the grant. And then beyond that, the total cost of this project grow because in order to house the new facility that would meet the federal requirements, we also have to relocate and rebuild our park services function. Now, in the case of the federal government supporting 70% of that cost, that's a positive in this whole conversation. But under both scenarios, whether we go it alone and don't rebuild the park services functions or we partner, we would have to identify roughly $5 million of capital funds to proceed. And right now, I don't have a clear line on that for you.
And what does the kind of MOU or arrangement look like with the Air Force or whatever other sites be allowed to use the site or are allowed to use the federally funded site? Could they end up crowding out our officers from being able to use the facility? Is there some sort of MOU that's going to be in place where we have certain lanes reserved for our officers?
I don't think we've discussed exactly the form of the contract, but it would be some type of a joint use agreement or facilities agreement or license or the like. We would identify the appropriate nomenclature at the time, but I don't think we have concern that we wouldn't have enough opportunity in a modern enclosed range to support multiple agencies' needs. I don't think we have any worries about crowding or losing access to space, and certainly it would be, a priority in the overall arrangement to ensure that our officers are training at the times they need. And then if our partner is the Air Force, they would be the agency that would also, I'm sure, demand, access that would grant and complete their needs and resource requirements. And then after that, I think would be whether or not we would explore additional agencies partnering with us and perhaps providing housing for them as well.
And as far as our $5 million plus contribution, is that something that we need to, I guess, potentially this is for the Air Force folks, is that something that we need to come up with kind of in one fell swoop, or is that something we could put on a layaway plan and slowly make kind of installment payments?
Federal IOUs?
Do we have any sort of idea as to how this works?
I don't know. It's a great question. It's one that I've asked as well. My understanding is I think there's once you sign the grant agreement and begin the process, you have a commitment within a year. I don't know if there's flexibility of that. Perhaps the Department of Defense would give us some opportunity. I don't know, but somebody would have to front the construction cost. I think
So once you sign the grant.
I'm sorry, can you
Cover the microphone, please.
Thank you. Once you sign the grant paperwork, the construction has to start within a year. So the money would have to be, so the design has to be completely completed once we put in the grant paperwork, and it's due in June. I mean, if we couldn't meet the timeline, so Colonel Burton and I have been working this since I got here pretty much, and, going around to the different cities and talking to different police departments. And if we couldn't get a grant in this year, I know that my successor will support this as well, and we would be happy to work with the city of Redondo to put the grant in next year if it took that time to raise the money.
Got it. And what's the year cycle? Is it the calendar year? Is it the fiscal year?
It's kind of odd. So the grant proposal actually just opened up. We just talked about it, and it closes at the end of June, and then you need to start spending the money within a year from June. It's
okay.
So not fiscal or calendar year. Kind of strange.
All right, thank you, Colonel.
You're welcome.
And are there any opportunities for us to get grant money for this? Are there any organizations, like we got an email from Ted Liu's office saying, hey, there's community development funds or whatnot.
We could certainly ask. I mean, that, we've had some success with the Congressman's office through their community program funding. We just received funds for Basin 3 upgrades there under that program's guidelines. I don't know if a co-located shooting range meets the criterion of the call for projects that we just received from Congressman Liu's office.
There is one for public safety, but I didn't dig into the.
Yeah, we can explore that. Certainly,
Elizabeth and I are going through that tomorrow.
If we were to pursue this, I would strongly recommend that we try to identify another third-party source of funds to cover our capital expense. We're just not prepared right now to spend $5 million of discretionary funds.
So what direction do you need today?
Well, if this is something you'd like to see us continue to work towards, and if you want to perhaps caveat that with identified resources that aren't general fund discretionary capital resources, because I think the comments that have been made by your colleagues as it pertains to other needs are good and appropriate. We have a lot of facility needs in our organization. $5 million would go a long way to upgrading a variety of civic structures. So ideally, we'd find another resource here to supplement our city match.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Lowenstein.
Thanks, Mayor Light. I'll keep my comments brief and questions brief. Actually, I've always been in favor of equipping our public safety to the best of our abilities financially, whether it's police or fire. I would agree with Councilmember Nierenheim. We have a lot of needs right now. We don't even know what the needs are for the Civic Center. We do know there's a lot of needs for Station 1 and Station 2 for fire. That being said, we are looking at financing mechanisms for the harbor and other things. When we look at this, we could potentially bond part of this.
Absolutely.
Right. And let's say it's a 20-year payback. By my calculations, assuming interest rates are what they are for municipal bonds, we're looking at about $360,000 to $400,000 a year to service that bond and to pay it off over 20 years. So that's doable. My question is, $400,000 a year, can we find partnerships of other municipalities, the Air Force Base, et cetera, to help service that? Because that's what we will need. I don't think we have the money right now, honestly, and I think we all know this. $5 million is a heavy lift for our city. We have a lot of needs, roads, buildings, et cetera. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with all of your sentiments. We do have a number of needs. We could, on a borrowing basis, fundraise for a variety of capital projects. This could be included in that capital fundraise. That would be one strategy, not just to address this facility, but other stations of need. So something we could certainly explore as part of the budget process. But to your point, can we absorb debt service at those values at this time? I'll know more when we present to you in May. We've got other costs to absorb in the upcoming budget structurally that we need to make sure we're sufficient in providing for. But we have borrowing capacity. There are other strategies on how we could fundraise for capital improvements in the city beyond what our current general resources are. I'm certainly open to that conversation.
We all are.
Other revenue strategies to supplement that effort, because I couldn't agree more with the need in our community. But
and also getting other agencies.
Yeah, bringing other agencies in. I think we'll be successful in covering any additional operating costs. I feel confident that this type of facility would allow us to do that through partnership.
I'm talking about the capital cost.
The capital side of it is the bigger issue. And in order to identify 4 or 5 MOUs, perhaps at $100,000 a year to fully cover that debt service payment, I wouldn't want to tell you that seems likely to me. Covering $100,000 to $200,000 a year of operating expenses seems feasible. Much more than that, probably a stretch.
Yeah. Well, I think it's obvious if this needs to be done for appropriations by June, I think it's a very short runway, to use an Air Force term. So I would think if we're going to look at this, it would have to probably be for next year. I don't speak on behalf of the council, but we're almost in budgeting season now.
Yep.
And I don't know where we would come up with the money between now and June to do something like this. But I think long-term, I think it's a great project if we can make it work financially. And I think that's where we have to really look at it, because again, we have so many needs right now.
And it needs to be weighed against our other competing capital needs. That's the appropriate time to consider it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's it.
Councilmember Kalajevic.
A lot's been set up here. I do want to speak to, we do have a lot of facilities that need attention, but this is the only one that we have a grant opportunity with. So I think that we need to prioritize that. There are other ways, I think we can explore other grant opportunities to cover the remaining $5 million. I want to continue this project because we do have a partnership here with the Air Force, and they're definitely rooted in this community. So, I would like to open it up for public comment. I know we have a council member from Torrance here. We did speak about this briefly, but this is also a quality of life issue. We talked about hearing gunshots. I mean, we talk about quality of life with noise, pickleball. We're hearing gunshots in an open range. So this is also a quality of life issue with residents in our city as well as Torrance. So I would like to hear from some of the public on that.
Okay, with that, let's open it up to the public. Any member of the public wishing to speak to this item, just come on up. We don't have any cards, do we? Okay,
Any tennis players?
so raise each other up and and you are limited to 3 minutes on that.
Hi, my name is Bridget Lewis, and I am the council member from the city of Torrance.
Well, thank you for coming tonight.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you for having me here. Towers Elementary is actually across diagonally from your fire range and is in my district. And what I can tell you as part of my day job, which I'm the manager of Homeland Security for the port complex, we struggle to find firing ranges to keep up with our training. We do a lot of live fire training on the water. And if you've never fired on the water, come down and join us. It's pretty fun. And we also try to find range days. When we had our range that was undergoing renovations, we had to send our folks all the way out to Riverside County. And that is definitely not conducive to your overtime budget, nor is it conducive to having your officers trained. By the time they go out there, train, do a tactical shoot, they're exhausted by the time that we get back, and most of the time we're on overtime because every police department in the country is short-staffed, so they're going on overtime as well. If you have grant money to do a firing range, I would recommend that you definitely go after that money. If you don't want it, come see me and we'll take it off your hands for you. And we're absolutely supportive of enclosing that range. That would help alleviate some concerns of the parents and some teachers that are at Towers Elementary. And I'm sure it would also go a long ways to help alleviate some of the concerns of an outdoor firing range as far as quality life issues are concerned. So the councilwoman and I did discuss quality of life issues, and we think that if you can find partnerships, which if you put it out there, just like Orange County did, they're in the midst of revamping their firing range. And they're still $10 million short of that, but it gives them some phenomenal training opportunities for their officers to be in the forefront of dynamic range situations. FATS trailers, which I think I heard the chief reference before, isn't always the greatest training mechanism for your police departments. So in firing ranges and in public safety, if you build it, they will come type of concept. And maybe I can also suggest to look into some Homeland Security grant funding, if possible. There's a lot of funding out there. There's also infrastructure grants that can help build the fire departments, but not necessarily would qualify those grants to build a firing range. So looking into all of those alternatives, I do think that there are some opportunities up there. And with partnering with Space Force, which is one of our key military departments here in the South Bay, is phenomenal. So any support we can give you from Torrance, please let us know. Thank you.
$5 million.
I'm sorry?
$5 million.
So we can have a fundraiser, we could.
I was thinking brownies.
But on a serious note, would the council from Torrance write a letter of, or give us a letter of support in the grants that we write for this?
I would have to go back because I can't speak for the entire council, but I am quite sure that by the time that you partner with the city as well as the Torrance Unified School District, that you would have some favorable support for enclosing your current range and upgrading it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else before I sit down? I see Mr. Obaji.
Congratulations, Councilmember Lewis, on your reelection.
Thank you.
You know, what also contributes to quality of life is fully built bike paths around BC.
Oh, here we go. So since that's not an agenda item, I will stick to the agenda item that I'm here to speak with.
Did you shoot that one down? Did you shoot that comment down? Is that what it is?
Last comment, you're welcome for the 2 additional minutes that you got here.
Oh, thank you.
That you don't
Thank
need
you.
in
Thank you.
Torrance.
Thank you. We don't do that in Torrance,
Right,
so
no,
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Good evening, I'm Alan Kleinbaum. I live at 210 Camino Real in Redondo Beach. $15, $20 million. That's a ton of money, but you could kill two birds with one stone. I don't know if you've been in the police department lately, but I was in there like a couple decades ago, and it was like ancient. And so maybe that money you could use for just a shooting range. Maybe you could build a whole new police station with a shooting range underground and better use of resources. Also, the police department may have a sworn staff of 100 officers, but you can count on your hands many times how many officers are out on patrol. Maybe some of that money could also be used to hire more patrol officers so they could serve the city better. And so apply the resources more evenly, a better appropriation, build a new police station is my suggestion with the funds, with an underground shooting range.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Georgette Gantner, District 2. I fully support, I don't live close, but I had dogs, and the dog park is right next door. And besides the noise for people, there's dogs. Anyway, I was just wondering why you presented 3 plans, and I was wondering why the other 2 weren't. Maybe we could, you could look at those in a more detailed level. Maybe there's something that comes in between this cost, because if you went with the $6 million one and they were able to finance 2/3 of that on a grant, I don't know if the grant qualifies.
It doesn't meet their needs.
It does not.
Doesn't meet the requirements.
Oh, okay. All right. So it would be 6 million. All right. I was just wondering if there's something else that could be a little bit cheaper. But yeah, I think that it's a wonderful idea to improve this facility for officers to be able to train, and the combination with working with the force. Sounds good. We could just afford it.
Thank you. Any other member of the public wish to speak? Okay, anybody online?
We currently do not have anyone with their hand raised on Zoom. And then we have 2 e-comments as well.
Okay. Are they for or against, or?
Both against.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so any further discussion?
Let's make a motion to receive and file the report. Thank the military for coming down. I think, we fully support you. I love blending and braiding funds. And we'll see what ends up with this, budget cycle in the season. Maybe our bond measure that we might be getting coming through, we'll have that money in there.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? So Councilmember Obaji, are you still live or did you not?
Oh, I just didn't put my hand out, sorry.
Okay, so any other?
I have a substitute motion. I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to continue work with the design and engineering, whatever's needed for the grant with the money that's in the account now, to be ready to apply for the grant and also explore potential funding, other funding sources, grants and otherwise, potentially a Homeland Security grant. That's my motion.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? On
Can you define and be ready to apply for the grant? What does that mean?
Well, I would say we're continuing to do the design and engineering. We may need some environmental. Is it realistic that we would be ready for the June deadline?
If the requirement is a full design ready to build, no. If not this June. We have about $500,000 in the CIP fund right now. We could continue with design towards one of these options, and if it was the full rebuild option, to be ready for the grant timing next June, I think we could get well down the road. I'm going to look back at Jack, and he's nodding, so I think he thinks we can do it.
Okay, so then I will make that part of my motion to continue the design, engineering, and be ready for next year's application with the design that is a partnership with the Air Force.
And to seek other funding sources.
Thank you, and to seek other funding sources for the remainder.
What about the $5 million or 5.2?
The other funding sources for the remainder.
Not out of our general fund, though.
That's right. So
Okay.
find other funding sources for,
As long as it's not from our monies, I'd be fine with that.
that's not part of the motion.
Could we
right?
get a report of that during the budget cycle?
Sure, we can talk about that. I mean, we have money in the account now, I think, to cover the next phase of design, if that's the will of the council, and we can start making phone calls with potential partnering agencies. We could also identify grant funds that might apply to this facility. Homeland Security is a good start. We can hit up federal and state legislators as well. But if I'm hearing the motion correctly, we would continue to proceed towards basically being grant ready. And then at that time, we would have to come forward, in my view, with the supplemental funding required to balance and meet our city match. And the council would make a decision at that time as to whether or not we would actually apply for the funds.
Okay, and Councilmember Kalajerovic, you're not advocating this coming out of our hide, correct?
No,
Okay.
I'm.
I just wanted to clarify.
That's
Not on the
correct.
CIP budget?
No, I mean, we've got existing, we wouldn't spend any more than our existing appropriation now, which we've got $540,000 available. I think that's sufficient to cover grant readiness. And what I'm hearing is we proceed along the
We
partnership
haven't
option.
voted on it yet, but that's
Yeah, I
the
mean,
motion.
if assuming this is voted on, and then we would come back at the right time and decide what our city match would be with an identified source, if one's been identified.
Councilmember Lowenstein, is your hand up?
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, I don't mind pursuing that, but, the long-range goal is to have funding for this. I'm a little leery of, even though it's been appropriated, the $545,000 is a lot of money.
Oh, it's a significant expense in the pre-design work. There's no question, yeah.
And before we even look at the budget options, funding options in May, how long would this design process take?
I mean, to be ready for a grant application at next year's grant cycle, which is, I think, what I'm hearing, it would take the better part of the next 12 months. And then we would have firmer construction cost estimates. We would know exactly what the facility expenditure would look like. We would have a better sense of our operational partner opportunities, whatever they might be.
Yeah.
And then we would ideally at that point come forward in in the optimal solution, a $5 million third-party grant that would cover the city match.
That would be great. That'd be ideal.
And I would like to understand, if we're going to go through that, and we haven't voted yet, that towards the end of this project, before we approve it, we understand the environmental side, the sound attenuation, since that's one of the primary goals of this is 24/7
Right, it needs to
operation.
ensure that.
We ought to know how much sound is coming out of this when you're live firing in there.
Is that one of the next phases in the design process, Andy? Could we get that information fairly quickly?
I think we could, what's defined fairly quickly, but yeah, I think we
Well-
can have that. That'll be part of the next phase, absolutely. And there is a NEPA component to this that will have to answer a lot of those questions.
And so my only concern here is, that's fine that we go this process, but my concern is if we find that there's no funding mechanism, we've spent $545,000 for design for something that may not happen. And that's,
Course correct at budget?
Well, we probably can't course correct at this budget cycle. I don't think we'll have enough information at that time. Now, if you wanted to condition this further and say, hey, report back to us as part of this budget, have you identified any third-party grants? Are there agencies that would partner with you on an operating basis? We could give you a preliminary
Would you
report
accept
on that in the next couple of months. I'm not sure we will have run that to the ground, but we can give you what information we have available. And if you're concerned, you could course correct it, but you'll have to reappropriate these funds as part of the CIP either way this June. That'll be an obligation to carry this project forward.
Understood. Are you okay with that, Councilmember Kaluuya?
With them coming back at budget, is that what you said?
With an update on
Update on
viability
where
of third-party funding, we can certainly do that.
So
In 2 months? I mean,
It'll be a 2-month report.
right, but if we're going to make that a
Okay,
condition.
so
Yeah.
we don't have to continue.
No.
Okay, Councilmember Narenheim.
Yeah, where are we with the refurbishment and replacement of all of our city facilities, such as our fire stations?
Yeah, we need to have that assessment discussion with you all as well.
I think we need to wait until we have that, because I think, like I
We
said
have a
before,
grant for
this city, Redondo Beach Unified is now talking about a $389 million bond.
Yeah.
Up from $300 million.
I'm going to rein you in, Councilmember. You
Yeah.
made your point.
What I'm saying
We
here
understand it.
is
We
we need to have
understand it.
better clarity as to where we're going to get this $5 million from.
We understand.
Okay.
Okay. Councilmember Obaji.
I just wanted to get clear on what we're going to use in the next 2 months we're going to use this, the CIP money in part to apply for grants or get a grant writer to write grants?
Not necessarily. The money that's in the budget now would further advance the design of the facility, environmental requirements, et cetera, to be grant ready for effectively a year from now. We need to, if we want to be ready for the next June cycle, we've got to complete this work over the next 12 months. This motion would direct us to continue that work. Now, 2 months from now, as part of the budget, we can give you an update on third-party grant fund viability. If there isn't any, you're going to have to reappropriate these funds at some point.
So I guess my question is, who do we expect will do our grant writing grant applications, if there are ones available? Will that be done in-house or will that be an outside grant writer?
We have an outside grant writer. If there's a viable fund, a viable grant opportunity, we engage them to support us in that effort. But we don't waste their services on grants that may be unlikely. So if we identify one that could work for this facility, we could task them to help us with that and perhaps identify actual funds.
Do we have funds for that, or funds from this could be used for that?
Both are true. We have standby funds. We have an encumbered agreement with the firm that's at the ready for us on all grant options.
And Chief, don't you have folks who write grants?
Most departments write grants. I mean,
Yeah, we do write some grants, but a lot of the grants that we're working on are coordination of multi-jurisdictional homeland security grants that have.
So you're saying your grant writer couldn't help with this? Or do
Well,
that?
we could, but depending on the nature of the grant, what the requirements are, it could be a heavy lift as far as.
Understand.
Yeah, so I would say depending on the requirements for the specific grant, it may be more of an efficient process to engage the grant writer to work on a specific
Okay.
grant. So the OTS grants, COP grants are a lot lighter lift for us.
Councilmember Barrett. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Nairn.
Oh, sorry, taking it down.
Okay, Councilmember Barrett.
Go ahead, Mr. City
I was just
Manager.
going to say, we would first identify the grant and
then
its
figure out who would
viability,
be.
and then make a determination as to whether or not it's worth the expense.
So that was my question for clarification. It's not like Andy tomorrow's going to burn 545,000 and come back. Okay, so the horse will be before the cart to some extent?
Yes. Now, will our burn rate continue for the next month? I don't know how much work will actually be accomplished between now and the budget cycle, but yes, we would continue to work towards the design, advance the project, look at alternative grants, report back to you as part of the budget. You would then make the determination, do you continue to appropriate these funds? Would you reappropriate them to complete the work for the next June grant cycle, or pivot in some other direction?
All right, and the left hand and right hand will be, pardon the pun, communicating so that if the grant issue's not looking great, we kind of. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to call. I was just going to say, I don't know if the city attorney had anything to add, anything. No? Okay.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote. So that we're going to vote on the substitute motion. All four, if we could do a.
Is that pages?
Yes,
count?
yes.
Okay.
If you could do well, I'll do the roll.
What's your motion?
Councilmember Nairn.
No.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
No.
Councilmember Kulajera.
Aye.
Councilmember Baji.
Aye.
Councilmember Barrett.
Aye.
So 3-2, the motion carries. Thank you. I think to our military members, I don't think there's no hope we're going to get it by this June. So I think you're looking at next year at the earliest. And I'm sure Councilmember Kulajera will continue to coordinate with you. But thank you so much for coming down here. It really helped. Appreciate it. And thanks for what you guys do. Appreciate your service. Okay, now back into the normal agenda, back to item F. Let's see, so we will call the regular meeting of the Community Financing Authority.
Member Narenheim.
Here.
Member Vice Chair Lowenstein.
Here.
Member Kalojevic.
Here.
Member Obaji.
Here.
Member Barrett.
Here.
Chair Member Light.
Here. He said here.
I did say hi. He said here, I said here.
Okay.
Oh, you did not?
I said here.
I had it.
Okay.
Okay, you're just looking at us like.
I wasn't sure what he was trying to tell me.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the order of agenda?
So moved. Second. So
All four?
moved and second.
All four?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Let's see, there's anything from any blue folder items?
There are no blue folder items for this.
Okay, consent calendar. Does anybody want to pull anything from the consent calendar? Nobody. Okay, any members of the public wish to participate in, talk to any of the consent calendar items?
We do not have any cards. We do not have any, anyone on Zoom raising their hand, and we do not have any e-comments.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second. Okay, all four?
Aye.
Okay, no opposed. And I believe that is it. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
No, public participation on non-agenda.
I'm sorry?
Public participation
Oh,
on
that's
non-agenda.
right. Any members of the public wish to speak to the Community Financing Authority about anything that's not on the agenda?
No Zoom cards, excuse me. There were no cards presented, no, someone just raised their hand on Zoom. Bob Brown, please unmute yourself and you may begin speaking.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Great. Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Bob Brown, and I live on South Juanita Avenue across from Alta Vista Tennis Courts. And I'm
So
speaking
if you're going to
regarding...
talk on tennis, this is the wrong agenda item.
No, we don't. They can talk about it because it is.
No, we're still in the Community Financing Authority.
They can still speak about anything, and even
Okay,
in that on
okay,
agenda.
sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry,
Thank you.
my bad.
So I live across from Alta Vista Tennis Courts, and I'm speaking regarding pickleball sound. I want to voice my opposition to the conversion of any of the courts to play pickleball. Let me start by saying my home is 140 feet from the courts, and that's accurate. Before this meeting, I measured it myself. The constant pinging of pickleball that close all day will be unbearable, not only because it's 140 feet close, but because of the shape of the park's hills, the sound is much louder, like you were in an amphitheater. When people raise their voice on the tennis courts now, I can hear their conversation. I think before any consideration is made to allow pickleball at Alta Vista, the city should do an environmental study to see what the noise impact would be. I can produce an 80-page sample of one that I have from another city. It includes best practices, characteristics of pickleball sound, noise impact assessment, and noise abatement planning. Recommended distances to mitigate the sound is 500 feet, more so with the amphitheater effect of the park. I have nothing against pickleball. In fact, I would vote yes on a referendum to build some dedicated courts in Redondo Beach, just not at Alta Vista. That is the wrong place for sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members on something pertaining to the Community Financing Authority?
There is no one else with their hand raised on Zoom, and we had no e-comments.
Okay, thank you. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All four?
Aye.
Okay, we have one absence with Councilmember Obaji, but we are adjourned. Okay, let's proceed to item N2.
We have to do
Roll call
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call.
and non-agenda.
Thank you. Councilmember Narenheim.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lowenstein.
Here.
Councilmember Kalogerovich.
Here.
Councilmember Obaji.
Here.
Councilmember Barrett.
Here.
Mayor Light.
Here.
Have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going back to the public discussion on non-agenda items. Any member wishing?
Consent?
Did we not do consent? Okay.
We need consent, right?
Consent calendar
I got
first.
confused because we did consent on the last one. My apologies.
That's okay.
Okay, consent calendar. So does anybody want to pull anything on the current consent calendar? Councilmember Lowenstein?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Kalogerovich?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Obaji?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Barrett? Okay. Does any member of the public want to speak on the consent calendar items before we vote on them? Anybody online?
We have an e-comment on item H11, and it's neutral. No one has their hand raised on Zoom. And no speaker cards.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion to approve the consent calendar items, H1 through H15.
Second.
Okay, all four?
Aye.
Okay, anything you need to read off?
Yes. I have a few items to read. Give me a quick minute here. Item H10, adopt by title only resolution number CC 2404-020 of the City of Redondo Beach, California, ordering the city engineer to prepare and file a report pursuant to the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972, sections 22-500 at sequence of the California Streets and Highways Code describing the maintenance and improvement of streetlights and landscaping in the city of Redondo Beach, California, for fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025. Agenda item H11, adopt by title only ordinance number 3269-24, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Redondo Beach, California, amending Chapter 24, Article 5, Section 4-24.507 of the Redondo Beach Municipal Code, modifying the citywide ban on leaf blowers to allow the use of electric leaf blowers during construction hours for second reading and adoption. And item H14, adopt by title only resolution number CC 2404-021, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Redondo Beach, California, expressing the city's opposition to California Assembly Bill 2560 Alvarez that would eliminate the coastal zone exemption from the state's density bonus law, and that includes a letter. And item that concludes my readings of resolutions and ordinances.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
So now we're going to public participation in non-agenda items. That affords the members of the public 3 minutes to speak on any items that's not covered in the rest of the agenda. And we will limit this period to 30 minutes. And I do have cards, so we will go by the cards that have been submitted. I will read off 2 at a time so we can expedite this in getting people up here. So let's see, with that, Lisa Queso and Mark Stratton are the first 2.
Mayor and council members, I am a 13-year resident of South Juanita Avenue in the Alta Vista area of South Redondo. And I'm here to publicly voice my concern and opposition to having any Alta Vista tennis courts restriped for dual pickleball use. I have emailed each of you individually and as a group, but I have not heard back from some of you, so I want to make sure that my voice is publicly heard. There's not much new that I'm going to say tonight that I haven't already outlined in detail via email. I showed you the unobstructed view we residents have of the courts and the courts have of our homes, which are a mere 130 feet away from the center of Court 8. I sent you pictures of the slope between the court and our homes, along with an explanation of the science behind the acoustics of amphitheater-shaped structures. Finally, I sent you a detailed explanation of the sound quality of pickleball written by a pickleball enthusiast. What I haven't yet done is impress upon you what the importance of your decision on whether to allow pickleball at Alta Vista Park means to myself and other residents of South Juanita Avenue. For pickleballers and tennis players who are squabbling over who gets to play at the Alta Vista courts, they are talking about something that really might only affect them for a couple hours a week. There are other tennis and pickleball courts in our neighborhood where they can play if they can't play at Alta Vista. But we are homeowners, we are taxpayers, and we are longtime residents of South Juanita Avenue, and no one is more impacted by a decision to allow pickleball courts with their constant, rapid, repetitive, high-pitched sound at Alta Vista Park. For us, it is more than just playing a game for a couple hours at the courts. For us, it is about our quality of life because we live here. Please be reminded that you don't serve pickleballers and you don't serve tennis players. You were elected and sworn in to serve the residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question.
Keep it short.
Sure. Did you hear us playing pickleball at Alta Vista today at 2:15?
I did, and I would have brought it up, but I didn't know if I had time. I apologize. I got your email this morning asking me to come meet you to test the sound. And coincidentally, a neighbor emailed me and said that she did hear, I believe, 2 people playing with 1 pickleball, which is not a really fair assessment of what it would sound like if we had 8. My neighbor also told me that you were at based on her description, I believe it was you, and also you said you wanted to meet me. You were on
This isn't agendized and we're going wrong, so appreciate your input.
I'm sorry.
It's not agendized. We're not supposed to go back and forth on this.
Okay, well, so yes, my neighbor did say that she noticed you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mark Stratton and then Eric, I can't quite read the right, Bear, I think it is.
Thank you, Mayor Light and City Council. I am Dr. Mark Stratton, a retired local physician and a graduate of Loma Linda University with an MD and a master's degree in public health. The state of California has award funding using our taxpayer dollars to front Home Key Group like Century to purchase 20 substandard micro multifamily living units located on Pacific Coast Highway for both taxpayer-dependent transient and permanent housing. In doing this, the state of California has partially circumvented most of the normal rules and regulations governing public housing by using NGOs as a cudgel to force local municipalities like Redondo Beach to house tax-dependent public citizens such as drug addicts, the homeless, and the mentally ill. By using the NGO's qualification as private property, protective rules and regulations that normally apply to public housing have been disaffected as they relate to adjacent businesses and residential neighbors. Currently, these Home Key eligible taxpayer-dependent public citizens have failed to care for themselves and are currently being housed at taxpayer-funded public housing facility called the Pallet Shelter, located in North Redondo. The Pallet Shelter meets public housing standards as it relates to no smoking, a 500-yard no camping buffer zone, and a curfew. Century's Pacific Coast Highway Home Key project has agreed to accept some of these drug addicts, mental ill, and homeless taxpayer-dependent residents. These same publicly cared for and taxpayer-dependent residents will pay 1/3 of their taxpayer-derived salary as rent to Century Home Key. The public housing rules and regulations applied at the Pallet Shelter must be continued and to apply to the same identical public dependent housed residents after they move from the Pallet Shelter to Century's Home Key project on PCH. The city of Redondo Beach is currently failing to enforce compliance of what is in fact taxpayer-funded public housing at Century Project Home Key regarding no smoking and a no camping buffer zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Joran Quintero and then Evelyn Alvarado.
Mayor, and the previous speaker submitted something to us.
Second. File for that?
All four?
Aye.
Okay.
Eric, I think you're next after him.
Yes, I'm sorry. Eric Bear is next, and then Joran Quintero.
Okay, never mind. Sorry. My bad.
No problem. I'm following up on an email that I had sent to our city attorney, Mike Webb, on February 26th, which requested the drafting of no smoking and anti-camping at the Moonstone Home Key homeless shelter on 716 South PCH. And he did just talk to, he has not responded to anybody I know of. And that same request was made by you guys, the city council, weeks before. But he did talk to me in the lobby just a little while ago, and I'll share that with you. The main thing I want to really emphasize is Home Key needs to be no smoking. It shares property lines on two sides with residents. And a particular concern is that there are adults on these property lines that are suffering from acute asthma. There's young kids, that are just kindergarten age. In fact, there's a trampoline that's only 2 feet from the property line. You know, we all know the hazards of no smoking. I don't think there's anybody that would be a proponent of smoking. This would be a positive thing. So the other thing, which Dr. Stratton pointed out, is that Moonstone really should be considered public, and if it was, there'd already be no smoking and anti-camping ordinances in place. But, you know, that statute was bypassed. I won't go into the details of how that occurred, but so there really needs to be specific no smoking put in place. Our city attorney, Mike Webb, said that I guess there's a little bit of a legal issue if he was to do that strictly for this one home key situation, because there's multiple home keys. But there is a Redondo ordinance for no smoking, and if people do smoke there, we can try to enforce it, tell the police about it, and if they come out every time that happens and we complain, then they'll probably smoke somewhere else. So I want to really encourage you to back us up if we do that, and also let Century, who owns it, they could make it no smoking, because we're going to do that. Every time somebody lights up, we're going to call the police and have them come out and enforce it. According to our city attorney, Mr. Webb, that'd be the way to do it. Or Century could help us out and just put that in place, you know, to start with. So I think you guys are talking with Century. I'd really encourage you to communicate to that to them. And
Can you wrap it up?
yeah, I'm all done. I'm just going to put my email that I sent to Mr. Webb for the public record, and I put a note on here that he did respond.
Second.
All four?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think it's Joran Quintero, and then Evelyn Alvarado.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council members, thank you very much for the time. My name is Jorge Quintero. I'm a special representative with the Western States Regional Council of Carpenters. We represent over 4,000 members that live, work, and recreate in the South Bay area. And I'm here with my brothers and sisters to speak on tax fraud, day of action. It is estimated that construction tax fraud is responsible for cheating communities out of billions of dollars in tax revenue. That's billions of dollars in lost tax revenue that could be used for building and renovating schools, repairing roads, caring for veterans, sheltering the unhoused, funding for essential public programs, and shooting ranges for police officers. The prevalence of construction industry tax fraud has reached crisis levels and must be stopped. This April 13th through the 19th, Western States Carpenters Local 562 and the United Brotherhood of Carpenters are taking part of National Tax Fraud Days of Action, a week-long series of events to raise awareness about construction industry tax fraud. Tax Fraud Days of Actions grew out of widespread outreach about construction industry tax fraud, a range of practices where employees evade their tax responsibilities in several ways, often in intentionally misclassifying workers as independent contractors or pay workers in cash-only arrangements. As a result, these businesses significantly reduce their income tax and payroll tax responsibilities and defraud the communities of much-needed tax revenue. And as communities are continually facing budget shortfalls, it is more important than ever to crack down on these bad actor employers who are stealing from residents of Redondo Beach. I also want to thank Councilmember Obaji, Councilmember Lowenstein for your support in this matter and for helping us spread the message. Thank you.
Thank you. Evelyn Alvarado, and then James Matthews.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Evelyn Alvarado. I am a concrete formwork carpenter apprentice from Local 562 Long Beach. And construction industry tax fraud punishes good, fair-minded construction firms who cannot compete with the low road labor costs for fraudulent businesses. These bad actor employers are undercutting their competition by defrauding workers and absorbing a labor force that could be working for legit construction firms. This April 13th through 19th, Western States Carpenters Local 562 and the United Brothers Carpenters are taking part in the National Tax Fraud Days action, a week-long series of events to raise awareness about construction industry tax fraud. We are tired of seeing our construction partners being cheated out of hiring hard work people. It is more than time that we all work together to get these toxic bad actor employers out of Redondo Beach, so we can all go and build fairly, equitably, and successfully. Thank you.
Thank you. See James Matthews and Nikki Negretti Mitchell.
Good evening, council members. My name is James Matthews. I am a 25-plus year member with the Western States Regional Carpenters out of Local 562, Long Beach. Just to add on to what's been said, tax fraud is harming some working families. When employers shift their tax burdens onto their employees, employees must pay their employers' employment taxes out of their pockets, which places a huge financial burden on working families. Also, when employees aren't on the books, they are on the hook when they get sick or injured on the job and cannot work because they don't receive benefits. They do not get workers' compensation. The prevalence of construction industry tax fraud has reached crisis levels, and bad actor employers are preying on vulnerable workers, from taking advantage of our immigrant population to undercutting the competition. These bad actor employers are defrauding our working families and our communities by doing business that only fattens their wallets. It's unfortunate that we have to deal with this because it's been going on a long time. You know, our working families, employees, you know, by dealing with these bad employers, you know, they get the reduced benefits. In the long run, they are undercut on their Social Security. They won't get Medicare or anything like that. Job security becomes a bad thing for them because they're afraid to report any bad activities that are going on with their companies because they're afraid of losing their jobs. And given the situations that they're in, which is probably a bad situation because they don't have the resources to really take care of their families, you know, they're going to do what they need to do just because and deal with what's going on. The unfair wages by being paid under the table, they're not properly getting paid the wages that they need to be getting. So that's an unfortunate thing that they have to deal with. But one of the most important things is that it also provides an unsafe workplace. You know, these bad employers and stuff are cutting corners and everything like that so they can try and get these jobs done. And that puts a lot of pressure on our workers, and they risk injuries as well as illnesses depending on what the situation is and the work that it provides for them. So we are bringing this awareness to you for this month because it is our tax month, but it's also tax fraud awareness for the industry as a whole throughout our nation. So again, April 13th through the 19th is Tax Awareness Week, and I appreciate the time that you guys given me tonight.
Thank you. Nikki Negretti Mitchell and then Kevin Mitchell.
Good evening, Nikki Negretti Mitchell, District 3, proud Army brat. So we're getting down to the wire with the Metro C line, so the misinformation campaign has begun. Propaganda tools recently dredged up Al Marisucci's November of last year's public statement about the right-of-way option after his tour given by Metro staff. I have spoken with him twice since then. Both times he said he'd love to meet with us because he has not heard our side, and he wants to. He struck me as being open, gave his field reps direction to set up a meeting. Each gave me their card, and neither ever responded when I reached out. And all of the basis for the right-of-way advocacy is based on misinformation. Cost effectiveness, as we know, and the board know, is based on cost per rider. Metro states that Hawthorne Boulevard Station will bring much higher ridership, especially since the addition of the K line, one-seat ride to the airport option, which does in fact go to Hawthorne route despite dishonest efforts to say the contrary. Faster and cheaper is a long gone notion since it's been established that trenching under 182nd and 170th is necessary for emergency response. That eliminates the option they refer to now as right-of-way elevated at grade. The addition of the word elevated is a gaslight since it only refers to coming off of the marine station elevated before it goes at grade to bifurcate the Lawndale community and eat up their green space. Moving the high-pressure hazmat freight closer to homes on unstable soil all the way through Redondo Beach, where there sits the massive berm, also to be moved 12 to 15 feet closer to homes towering above rooftops. Seamless transition to buses also happens at the Hawthorne Boulevard station, so that's a non-starter. And complaints about having to cross the street and spend no more than 5 to 10 minutes on the train platform because it's so unpleasant is the most ridiculously privileged and entitled argument I've heard in 15 years. 10 minutes of someone's life versus 21 hours per day, 200 to 300 trains, 365 days per year, just feet from our bedroom windows. Are you kidding me? Right-of-way advocacy comes down to unwillingness to admit the obvious. They cling to their echo chamber of long debunked and overused canned talking points, and it makes absolutely no sense why. As for this project's main objective, getting cars off the road to alleviate traffic that the car industry created by killing the red car line, our neighboring city is surreptitiously allowing a car dealership to be the catalyst for this farcical misinformation campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kevin Mitchell and then Ken Bernstein. And that's the last card I have, so, nope, looks like it's not. Go ahead.
Keep coming. Good evening, Council and Mayor. Kevin Mitchell, Redondo Beach, District 3. Tyler Bonstad is the lead engineer and author of the DEIR regarding Metro's Sea Line Extension Project. Early on in this process, I asked him directly if there was any other route that shared the same contingencies as the row through the South Bay, namely a corridor that had an active hazardous freight line over multiple high-pressure petroleum gas lines that shared an at-grade corridor with a Metro light rail through neighborhoods. He looked at me and lied. A southern portion of the Gold Line. The row has an active daily freight line hauling liquid petroleum from the Port of Long Beach to the Marathon, Vallejo, Wilmington refineries, then the Marathon, Phillips 66 Carson refinery, then the PBF Torrance refinery, and then finally to the Chevron El Segundo refinery. When you begin to map this out, it becomes very clear that the South Bay row is a hazardous material corridor. This is different from all other BNS properties used by Metro, particularly where it goes through neighborhoods. Currently, hazardous freight and liquid pipelines do commingle with the sea line from Marine Station to El Segundo, but the Metro train is elevated the entire way and travels primarily through a commercial corridor. Bringing the train to grade on the road through neighborhoods is a particularly aggressive act. It creates a great deal of risk and sacrifice to residents and community. And for the Metro to position it as the proposed project, it indicates Metro's complete disregard for the public. Under hazards and hazardous material, the DEIR asks, would the project create a significant hazard to the public or environment through the routine transport, use, or disposal of hazardous materials? Less than significant, it deemed. Then would the project create a significant hazard to the public or the environment through reasonably foreseeable upset and accident conditions involving the release of hazardous materials into the environment? Again, less than significant. State legislators and Metro Board of Directors need to hear from city officials. South Bay cities that want to put their head in the sand are being willfully ignorant. Cities that would put a car dealership over the safety of the entire South Bay are dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Bernstein.
Good evening.
And then Joan Irvine, you're our last
I don't think I need a microphone. Ken Bernstein, District 5. I'm here to talk about everybody's favorite subject, Alta Vista. Okay? And I like to deal in facts and data. And it seems one of the big issues, I can go into a lot of things, but let's look at facts and data and so deal with the elephant in the room. What is the noise impact? We have a lot of speculation. That's on both sides, by the way. Speculation, opinions. So wouldn't it warrant to work with a acoustical noise and control company and find out what the real facts are? This way, what happens? No litigation, potentially. And whether it is positive or negative to anyone's side, you will make a decision based on facts and data. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan Irvine, and that's her last card. Can you send that?
And file, receive and file.
Motion to receive and file?
Second.
All four?
Aye.
Aye.
Joan Irvine, District 1. I'm here talking about my favorite subject, education around cannabis. I want to say that I'm really pleased that the radio show that I have right now, within the last month, it's become the 5th largest, most downloaded radio show with 115 views in the last month. People want to learn about cannabis since we're going to be having dispensaries. What I've given you with the receive and file, just the type of people that are the marketing, the type of people and the type of companies that are putting out product. So these are professional companies, and this is the type of marketing material that they're putting out. It's not cartel, it's not stoner type of stuff. These are business people. Also, one of the things that everybody talks about when they talk about kids and cannabis, it's been brought up about the fentanyl problem. And the thing is, legal dispensaries require that all product have a certificate of analysis, and each of you have a copy of this. So what this does is every batch of cannabis, before it goes out to the public and before it gets manufactured into, let's say, edibles or pre-rolls and such, have to go through this analysis. And it goes through and it checks that, making sure the type of cannabinoids that are in it, the percentages. It does pesticides, heavy metals, microbiological, residue solvents. So it goes through all of that to make sure that the product that is out there is good product. And so when people talk about fentanyl, that if that's in product, that's something that's coming from the illegal market, not coming from the legal market, which is another reason, that we should know that we are going to be having dispensaries in our town. And with that, once again, so if you have any questions, if people have questions, just please let me know. You can contact me at joan@joanirvineconsulting.com. If people are interested in having me come and talk to their group, or other people talk to their group about the cannabis industry and dispensaries, we are available. And so really excited. And also, we are going to be starting, since you can have medical cannabis delivery effective January 1st of this year. Some of us are going to be getting together and we will be having classes on medical cannabis. And so we'll be announcing that pretty soon also. So thank you for your time and appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, we got about 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. Does anybody from the audience want to speak on non-agenda items?
Georgette Gantner, District 2. I am a former public arts commissioner for the first 10 years that it was established. So public art is very near and dear to my heart. And I attend the Public Art Commission meetings, and I'm very interested in what's going to be happening. A few weeks ago, $400,000 was voted by City Council to start the project in Councilman Abaji's district on Artesia, and which sounds, we need art there. We don't have any public art there. And it could go as high as 1 million, depending on how the budget grows. So I would just like to suggest that, or I'd like to know, I know we can't discuss, but I hope that you have a vision, and you're starting to have a vision as to where, as with all of you, because you're all going to vote, as to where the art might be placed, what kind of art, what, sculpture, painting, whatever, artists, maybe. It's not necessarily your job specifically, but it would help because now the Public Art Commission is considering, and I think they're strongly considering, hiring an advisor to help with this project, which I think, at first I wasn't sure, but I think it is probably a good idea because it's going to be a large project. And I know that beautification is going to take place first. I think also what would be helpful is if they had maybe a district set aside away from traffic that might be a gathering point, because Artesia is a really long street. And I drove up and down that street the other day, and I thought, okay, where's the development happening? What's going on here, and so forth. And I think that, a district would be nice, and one of the public art commissioners had suggested, let's not call it a corridor, because it implies everybody's blowing through, but it's kind of still going to exist. But they could have a plaza, which could be considered a district. So I think that that is kind of a hopeful idea. Also, I'd also like to announce that on the Public Art Commission as of September, there's going to be 4 openings for people to come in and, help with them, and that would be great. And one last announcement, Nina Zach-Ladden, who's done California 101s for 10 years or so, is having the opening of her reception this Friday, April 5th, 6 to 9 at the Historic Library. And it's an art exhibit called Pairs, and it's 8 pairs of artists and probably about 100 pieces of artwork. And she asked of some of us to write statements. And so I wrote a statement for 2 artists. So that show should be as usual. Nina is a talented coordinator, and it should be a wonderful show. So I'd like to invite everybody and everyone to that show. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. So we have about 30 seconds. We'll take one more. Anybody interested in coming up to address come on up.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Marie Peterbach. I'm District 5, Scott. And I just want to support Beach Cities Health District. I don't know if you're aware that there was an article in the Easy Reader this week, and it really made it sound like Beach Cities Health District was their healthy living campus that just got in a really weird roadblock. And, I'm not here to get into the details of that, but as a parent, they have alcove, which is at full capacity. I have a friend, their kid 5150 himself. He's a grown man. I saw him cry about that. My mother-in-law just died. She was 90. Senior living's a nightmare because a lot of people are living to their 90s. So their senior citizen kids are having to take care of their 90-plus-year-old parents. Loneliness is an epidemic. I mean, just everything that Beach Cities Health District does is an asset to this community. And I understand that there's, building things and we're not a high growth city, but I just think to play fair with them. The way this article made it sound is that out of nowhere, I know that they took months and years and they had so much feedback. And it sounds like all of a sudden this requirement came out of nowhere and just sort of torpedoed a project. And if that's the case, I just don't think that's a good way to do business. So I think my experience with them, I've been volunteering for them since Susan Borden was here. They work nicely. So I think they're very easy to work with. And I really just hope that the council works with them on this project and doesn't, do any sort of nasty politics or sneaky things that would put Redondo, they have a right to defend themselves at some point. So I can't say enough nice things about them. I know the parents love them. I know they have a lot of support with this community. I know they've gotten a lot of money with Alcove, and I know that they've done a lot of great things. So I hope you support them as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes public comment. We've run out of the 30-minute time window. Let's see, we're going to move to item N2, the discussion and direction of staff regarding a draft amendment to Article 27 of the city charter. So who's got that?
He's on his way.
You got to keep up with us here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you can tell, what I'm seeking, to cut to the chase, is direction. If the council wants me to draft language for council consideration in terms of a charter amendment that would go to the voters to clarify which provisions of Article 27 have been preempted by state law. We had that ruling in the new commune downtown LA versus city case. It challenged our housing element, even though it's certified as fully compliant by HCD. They argued in part that because of the provisions of Article 27, that the draft housing element needed to go to the voters before it was sent to HCD. The Planning Commission and the City Council, relying on the long-standing interpretation by community development, determined that this housing element didn't need to do so because it was only a policy document, but that the implementing ordinances would need to go to the voters. The court, as I said, upheld our housing element. However, the court disagreed with that long-standing interpretation by the Community Development Department. It had been adopted by the Planning Commission and the voters, and held that the draft element would have to go to HCD, and therefore you'd have multiple different votes. So if this housing element process was typical, you'd have one housing element passed by the council, go to the voters, get approved, sent to HCD, and then they would suggest changes. And if the council wanted to get certification by HCD, which gives a presumption that the city can rely on, that they'd have to make the changes as they did, but before they sent it back to HCD, you'd have to have another vote, and so on until the third vote. You'll have a lot of expense, and you have confusion from the voters. It's also unclear, but the language of the opinion, which is attached, I know you've all read it, but it's attached for the residents to review as well, that the implementing ordinances, the zoning, does not need to be approved only so far as required for the housing element, doesn't need to be required to be approved by the voters as well. If there's no modification, then you have to have, as the council indicated to HCD, by a February 15th state deadline, you'd have to have it approved by the voters. However, no matter what the voters decide, it may not make a difference if it's preempted by state law, creating a great deal of voter confusion. So I tread very lightly on any charter amendment. You all know that I view that as sacrosanct. It's a provision. Every one of us gets our authority that we have in our respective offices from the charter and from the people that implement any changes to the charter. But if I can get direction from the council, then I will return at your first meeting in May with draft language. The ideal time to call it would be early in June for a September election, because if it passes, then we... This year? Yes. Because of, if it doesn't pass, we'll have a choice of, do you put on a vote for February, which I would recommend, even knowing that it may not make a difference. Plus, the ruling is under appeal. And so that could impact our housing element as well if the court were to, if the appellate court were to reverse the decision. Interestingly, neither the plaintiffs nor the city addressed this issue at all in the briefings, nor were we asked by the judge to submit supplemental briefing. And so it was the court's ruling on its own. I could add further, but I perhaps not. I would recommend the language I would propose will make minimal changes, keeping with the ruling from the court. It won't obviate any requirement to have the voters approve the non-housing element implementing ordinances, and the draft housing element will still have a a need to have the voters approve the other amendments to the general plan. The council will have more time to determine those general plan amendments and put them before the voters, because we will no longer have the February 15th deadline. And the only other change that I would recommend, because you want to keep it clear as to what you're doing, but it's up to you entirely, I would like to suggest amending the one glaring typo in Article 27, which Mayor Light is one of the proponents of the initiative. It had mentioned at one time lost version control. And so there's a definition in the middle of the section. You know, it hasn't, I've never interpreted it as being substantive.
And neither did the court.
What?
Neither did the court.
Well, it wasn't an issue for the court. It was not raised by them and wasn't going to be raised by me in defense of Article 27. And so I don't think it's substantive, but just to, you know, newer people reading, it really is. If it were an ordinance, we could have changed it right away. As a charter, so I would propose that language and the minimal to make certain that the Article 27 keeps this authority other than the areas of the housing element and the housing element implementing ordinances pursuant to the judge's ruling. But I need that direction before I start undertaking drafting.
Okay, thank you. As the proponent of Measure DD, it was Bill Brand and myself that were the proponents and put a lot of our heart and soul into writing that thing. I was reticent to consider any modification to DD, but given the circumstances of the state law, certainly the risk of and threat of builder's remedy is the exact opposite of what we wanted when we drafted Measure DD. So I do view this as a necessary thing. I first explored just using the exceptions clause under DD, but I think this path is much clearer and would stand up better to challenge. So I'm actually an advocate of this. I would ask for a sunset clause that makes it, that has it go away should the state law change, and we can work the wordsmithing later. And I agree about changing the, I wanted to do a pen and ink change,
Yes, I know.
changing that typo to get the paragraphs in the right order, which doesn't change any of the wording, it just gets it lined up correctly.
And I should add, and I mentioned in the report, the almost perverse reality is that a land speculator is using DD to completely eliminate any Redondo control over a builder's remedy project when the intent was clearly to give voters more control, not less.
Right. And the other element I would like to address is we never, although we probably could have worded it more explicitly, but we never anticipated any documents that had to be approved by things like the Coastal Commission or now HCD would have to go through that repetitive process. So that was clearly not the intent. And we actually, I think in the first LCP change for Measure G, you know, that came up and already.
So, and that's certainly, the council can make a referral or just listen, especially being the proponent. I will give great weight unless I'm told by a majority of the council not to. I would include those elements in my draft.
Okay. Councilmember Obaji.
Sure, if we could share my screen on the computer, not 2B, but whatever this computer screen is. The mayor actually sent me some language that I reviewed, and it seems to be applicable. I'd like to get, all right, there it is, yeah. So this states updates to, then I'd favor this.
So I would prefer not to discuss the actual language tonight.
Sure.
Just want to get the direction. I've had some concerns with that language that I've shared with the mayor, but I think it would be good to have my draft and then take a look at that. I really just want the direction to do this, because otherwise I don't draft a proposed charter amendment unless I get the council's go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll just say from what I see, I don't have any opposition to this, but of course, we have legal counsel for a purpose and a reason, so willing to take your advice on it as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
Is that it, Councilmember Obaji?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Narenheim.
So you're not looking, I want to be careful with what because I like his language, your language that you have, we talked, our conversation that we had. We don't know how state law can change.
Right.
Having a sunset clause in there.
I certainly will put that in, given our direction. It's important to have it be clear when it's effective and long enough.
And not effective.
And not effective, but long enough that it.
Yeah, doesn't, I get it.
Long enough.
Yes. And thinking this through regarding term and special election, so we would have a special election just on this item in September?
That's it doesn't have to be, but that would be giving the city 30 days to get the results and be able to, if the voters reject it, prepare and put on another special election in February.
It's the matter of it not passing. Because I was thinking, why not just line it up with the county?
That was the original thing we looked at, and I talked to the city clerk about that, and that won't work because you'll need to put on a special election, second one in February, and once you put it on, you can't withdraw it.
88 days, I believe, 88 days.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh,
you are there.
Voice.
Our city clerk is online.
Voice from above.
She is here via Zoom.
I remember my election code.
Yeah, actually, for that second election, we'd have to have it in January, because if I remember, it's due in February, the middle of February.
That's a lot of elections. So we wouldn't be able to have this in November, see how the results come out, and we wouldn't be able to call the election, because if it's 88 days, if we have it sometime in January, it would be, let's see, December, November, October, early October, late September.
And that's the reason for the early September, hoping that you'll have enough time to get the results by October. And we don't have to debate that tonight.
I'm just thinking about the timing on everything.
Right, but you can decide that at the next meeting when the clerk is here. What I just need is direction to start drafting and return with it to you. And I'm going to return the first meeting in February, so you'll have a full month to edit it, to wordsmith it. May. Sorry. The first meeting in May. So you'll have a full month to review it, to edit it, to get any resident feedback before you have to decide the first meeting in June. That's if you're going to place it on a September ballot. So you'll have time. I just need, it's more thumbs up, thumbs down, if you want me to undertake that drafting.
Yeah, I'm fine with getting draft language and getting comments from the public, and so that they understand what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, and it's purely draft language, and you're the ultimate
and to be
judges of it.
Clear on this is coming from two places. One is the state and their HCD, Housing Community Development, and their requirements. The conflict that is from state legislature that's pushing this forward, right? Be very clear on this. And two is the recent ruling that we had in one of the legal cases that we've had.
Right, and it was a successful ruling, but would have been unsuccessful, and we'd be looking at the builder's remedy now, but for the fact that the judge determined that Article 27 is preempted in terms of the housing element
So,
and its
right.
implementing ordinances.
So I'll just say that, unfortunately, I don't think our neighborhood voices will be on the ballot in November. So 2024 will not be the year for our neighborhood voices, which will, if that were to pass, we wouldn't have this problem to begin with. All local control goes right back to the cities. All this gets wiped off the map, and then we can go back and
one of the ideas I've kicked around is the triggering language or similar language to the language that's in our neighborhood voices, because that may be better than a time specific and not lead to litigation as to when it did or didn't state law change. It'd be, okay, we know if a constitutional amendment that has language substantially similar to the language in our neighborhood voices, it changes, the amendments go out entirely.
got it. All right, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Obaji.
All right, for the purpose of avoiding the builder's remedy in Redondo Beach, make a motion to draft language, direct the city attorney to draft language for an Article 27 amendment that would accept from Article 27's ambit housing elements passed by the city council and enacting legislation so that they don't need to go to a vote of the people before they.
And consistent with the
Sunset clause.
with the other comments from the mayor.
Sure, consistent with the other comments from the mayor and with the sunset clause to the extent that ACD no longer needs to certify our housing elements so that there would be no longer a trigger for the builder's remedy.
Well, some sort of sunset, because I don't want to tie it just to HCD.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion by the council?
And clarification, the motion is some sort of sunset.
Okay, anyone from the public wishing to address this item? Looks like no. Anybody online?
We have one hand raised on Zoom. Kyle Johnson, please unmute yourself and you may begin speaking.
If you're talking.
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Kyle Johnson, and I guess I would oppose this going to an election. I think that Redondo Beach should do everything in its power to become compliant to I'm blanking on the words, to have our housing in compliance and to support building more housing in our community. Redondo Beach suffers a dramatic shortfall of housing. And as a result, housing is incredibly expensive here. By building more housing, more people would be able to afford to live here. I understand that the builder's remedy is not an ideal solution for anyone, but at the same time, we can't keep turning everyone down. We have to build more housing eventually. I also oppose the election happening as a special election. Special elections receive much lower turnout than general elections, and aligning this referendum with the general election would ensure that more people participate, more people's voices are heard, and we get a better result. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify though, this move that we're proposing, if it were supported by the voters, would ensure that the people cannot vote against what housing that the HCD has already approved for our housing element. So I'm not sure if you understood the concept straight. It's a little confusing, but this is actually aiding compliance with our housing element that's been approved and certified.
And it's certified as fully compliant.
Yes.
Can I make a quick comment? Yeah?
Yes.
I just want to say regarding special elections, we had a 34% turnout for an October special election on a Wednesday. So special elections actually draw lots of people.
We had a higher turnout than in November.
Right. So.
Is there any other speakers?
There are no other speakers with their hand raised on Zoom, and we have no e-comments. Mayor.
Okay. Is your hand up, Councilmember?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay. If there's no other comments, then I'll call the vote. Let's do a roll call. Vote, Councilmember Narenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Kalajerovic.
Aye.
Councilmember Abaji.
Aye.
Councilmember Barron.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank
And sorry, Wendy, we're now to N3. Sorry to make you last on, or N1, the mid-cycle.
Mid-year budget review, yeah? Yeah. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. Wendy's going to tee up our presentation here. I might be already ready to go, I think, if you're up for it there, Lucy. I'm going to kick the presentation off, turn it over to Wendy. Really want to thank her and her team for the work on the mid-year review. Finance has been awfully busy, as you know. We adopted our annual comprehensive financial report about a month ago. We had our single audit finalized last week and submitted on a timely basis. You received and filed that document today. So it's been a busy couple of months getting us back on schedule. Really appreciate Wendy's hard work and that of her teams. The mid-year review is meant to be high-level adjustments to the budget as needed. It's not a deep dive in all of our various categories. It's really for us to kind of look at any significant red flags and make significant changes that might affect year end, particularly in a negative way. So we're going to walk through where we're at with revenues, and then Wendy will kind of take it from there. From a introduction standpoint, the purpose of this is to give you that, as I said, that sort of summary review across major funds, and our typical focus is that of the general fund. We look at year-end budget projections to see if there's any one category that might exceed original appropriation that we might need to make an adjustment for or identify an alternative source of funding. We don't have that concern this evening, thankfully. It's also the time of year where we implement our internal service fund changes, which are part of a retrospective review provided by a third-party consultant that looks at actual expenditures over a significant period of time and makes go-forward changes to how we assess and allocate charges across funds. It's a very common tool. Maximus is our group that does that for us these days. They made some adjustments to our methodology a couple years ago that you're seeing matriculate through the document now, when Wendy will walk you through that. And then we're going to give you a little bit of an update on what our budget calendar is over the next couple of months as we start looking towards 24-25. So next slide, please, Wendy. I think this is supposed to be out. Keep going.
My apologies, City Manager.
This is your old.
It was saved already, but there's something going on. I'm just trying to check on.
This is the wrong version here. So keep going. Okay, here's the next important slide. General fund revenue adjustments, just on an aggregate basis. Original adopted revenues with the appropriated budget were about 104 million. Mid-year adjustments take us up to about 108.8. That's not all good news. That's not all general tax increases or new funds or charges for service. A big portion of that comes through the flow-throughs that are part of the overhead charge and what happens with the ISF. So some of that positive increase is automatically netted out with new general fund appropriation. So I don't want us to get too excited about that number. Next slide, please. This is the summary chart, really, of our significant revenue sources by general fund. I won't go through all of these. I'll highlight some of the key ones. As I've mentioned to you many times, property tax continues to be a bright spot for us. Our adopted budget had the figure at about 33.2 million. Revised projections for the fiscal year are closer to 35 million. I should note that all of these projections are not just prepared by Wendy and I or our team. We have third-party consultants and experts that help us with this, whether it be HDL or other groups like that. And each of these categories have a third-party check for us as we go through revenue projection. We're getting the updated version here.
Let me switch. While we do
Is that
that.
it right there?
See that, let's see it.
I gotta go to Luke. You put it in the wrong spot. Yes, no?
It's in the wrong spot. They put it.
All right, well, let's see.
Got you, City Manager.
You want to go back to the other one? or-
Yes, sir. We can.
All right, can we, we're gonna make do here. All right, back up one, please. Yeah, one more. There we go.
Sorry
All
about
right, so back to the good stuff. Property tax, very positive number for us, $35 million. continues to be strong. I think we'll be able to make similar adjustment as part of the adopted budget in 24-25 to actually show further increase to that account, maybe not at the $1.8 million level, but at a substantive level. Sales and use tax, not a bright spot for us, as we've talked about many times over. It came up during the ACT discussion, about $600,000 revision downward there, really just flat sales in our community. And also, as our brick and mortar performance wanes versus our peers, so does the amount of allocation we receive from the county sales tax pool, which is what collects all of your online purchases, whether it be here or somewhere else in the region. Utilities user tax continues to be flat, no change there. Same with our TOT, that's forecasting as expected. We should see growth in that category next year as we go into 24-25 and the Marine Avenue hotel sites get back online. Property transfer tax is down. This is really a function of overall home sales in the community. I think everybody understands the economic drivers there. With higher interest rate, lower home sales occur, we receive less of that property transfer tax. It is a one-time source associated with that transaction. Generally flat on the other taxes. Overhead, as I mentioned earlier, is a big increase up, but again, not to really get excited about because it also comes with outflows out through the general fund that net out. It's a slight net positive for us in that category. All right, we're going to take another crack at this.
Mike, what is overhead exactly?
Overhead is
ISFs?
It's all of the ISFs combined, all the internal service fund departments, the operating departments that support functions, whether it be human resources, financial services, city manager's office, city attorney's office, city clerk's office, city treasurer's office. This body, anybody that it flows through an overhead category, ultimately charges out and allocates cost to user departments, operating departments. Those charges then flow back through as an overhead revenue and then get paid out through the general fund as part of the operating budget. So again, it's a function of cost allocation. It doesn't necessarily generate new income for us. Okay, this slide, here we are again. License and permits, not a lot of change there. I think fines and forfeitures, a small amount downward adjustment reflecting trends. Charges for service, $860,000 reduction there. The big factor there, we had anticipated a little over $900,000 of fire EMS fees this year. We have delayed that implementation for a couple of reasons. One, to be clear about how we invoice, and then two, we had state legislation that we had to review to make sure we weren't running afoul of. We are prepared to roll that out. Upcoming council items, we will have an agenda item and a contract to proceed with that fee implementation per council direction. And then lastly, miscellaneous revenue, small adjustment there, really reflective of just a general decline in annualized grants from donations, not from, say, CAP project grant funds or other things. Next slide, please, Wendy. So on the aggregate, taxes are a positive $600,000. Overhead is up, as I mentioned, and other revenue is down, and that's really the charges for fees for service as well as the miscellaneous revenue, predominantly the delay EMS implementation fee. And in total, what that gives us is $4.7 million of additional revenue to the general fund that can help offset any increased expenditures, most notably the ISF changes that we'll be following here in a second. Want to proceed there, Wendy? Before she gets into expenditure, go ahead and kick the slide there. I do want to mention that we do not, thankfully this year, have to make any adjustments downward to personnel budgets and or count on savings in personnel to balance. I can tell you at year end, we will have savings. Right now, the trend line shows that we should save somewhere between 10 and 15% of our total aggregate personnel budget due to savings in both police and fire departments and other operating departments. But rather than book that now as a savings and then have that money to spend, I'd rather see that flow through to year end. So we have a little bit of cash at that time that can either flow through to capital, replenish reserves, or do other things. So we don't have a need for utilization of that money at this time. So I'd rather not spend time drilling it and ultimately reflecting those savings. But I can tell you when we do close the books next year, it will be accretive to the overall bottom line.
So can I break in? I'm a little confused. So that there's that table you showed us.
Yeah.
That resulted in 4.5 million.
4.7 of additional general fund
Greater than
revenue.
what we expected.
Yes.
Is that just the general fund?
Yes, just the general fund.
Okay.
That's only general fund focused, yes. And then what you're about to see now are draws on that 4.7 million through expenditures. So you're going to see that here in the following slides. And that's where I'm going to turn it over to Wendy and let her take it.
Thank you, City Manager Wazanski. Sorry for the hobbleness there. We want to make it interesting for mid-year, as Redondo Beach is always. So I'm going to walk you through the expenditures, kind of educate through on the ISF and kind of walk through those elements, and then finish it off with a estimated fund balance for you. Please stop me if you have any questions. So as City Manager Wazanski mentioned, our personnel spending consistently, we're projecting 10 to 15% at the end of it all. Our M&O contract services and all capital outlays right now, we're performing budget to actual at the mid-year point within a little bit higher just because of pace, but we expect it to be within budget well ahead at year end. Expenditure adjustments that we will walk through are the appropriation adjustments, ISF related, our overhead and annual update, of course, that I'll walk you through. Administrative changes with no net impact to the city. This is involving information technology carry forward that was available at the time of carry forward. It was just actually booked. It's an administrative fix to that. Funding was there and available. We are just making now that posted to the books. And then, of course, the information the Information Technology Fund correction is the one I said before. The administrative changes with no net impact is just typical housekeeping that we do at mid-year that we administratively do in finance for the mid-year adjustments. Walking into mid-year ISF, here are your plans as they relate to ISF. You're familiar with vehicle replacement, information technology, emergency comm, self-insurance, building occupancy, major facilities repair, the city facility sewer fee, and of course, overhead. This is the general fund admin cost, or what traditionally is known as the cost to do business. This is where your revenue and expenditures come in for overhead that you'll see. Adjusted and reviewed every single plan year to year between the 23-24 adopted and at the time now at 23-24 mid-year. You can see an overall 11% impact. The overhead noted in slides before, which was the $13.8 million comparative to last year at 8.745, and I will walk you through those deltas. This is directly related to a calculation methodology change this year. The inverse of that, or what that means is we were reporting expenditures or costs through divisions, specifically in the public safety and divisions, right? We moved all that based on our audit and consultant requirements for best practices in order to capture costs, overhead and indirect costs correctly, so it was moved to the administrative sections of the ISF. Reason why you see that is due to that, right? And I can answer any questions you like on those. I wanted to give you some reasonings behind those, that $35.6 million. And how it relates. So some of the personnel changes related to that are required by GASB 68, which is and 75, which is your pension and OPEB requirements as far as how we're reporting. That drove quite a bit of it. Some of the changes also, as I mentioned before, is the police and fire admin for 22-23. We were reporting them in division budgets. That's where they were being captured and now are being allocated as directed for best practices in the admin and overhead sections. These two divisions pretty much cover 82% of the ISF overhead charge, which is why it was so significant. And you see, this is coming from emergency communications operations, making a reduction of 27% there. So the inverse is shown.
Wendy, if I may stop you real quick.
Yes, sir.
Again, so you said the two departments are administration. What was the other?
It's admin in police and fire. So what's happened is rather than these being booked as direct line expenses in the division categories, they're now flowing through overhead. It's not changing the total operating budget for those two departments. The general fund expenditure is still flowing to those accounts. It's just categorized as an overhead charge as opposed to a direct line operations charge. So still reflected in the department budgets in total, just a different way of capturing it through the ISF. And again, this is at Maximus's recommendation to us. This isn't something that we're deciding is a good idea. They're telling us this is a better, best management practice.
I was wondering where we're getting an extra $5 million.
Yeah, and we're not, because what comes with as an additional allocation to offset it.
So I do have a question on that, if I may break in. So we're now giving ISF funds to the different departments, right?
We still, yeah, we take them in and then we deploy them out.
So like the harbor fund is paying for admin in the police department?
No, not necessarily. Now, the Harbor Tidelands patrol operations as it
ISF.
pertains,
No,
in
the
that,
ISF.
in that scenario, yes, there would be some allocation and some related service. But Harbor, it would be specific to the function there, not to the
No, but you take
enterprise.
ISF funds out of the harbor enterprise.
We do, yes.
And that goes to the general fund?
It does.
And then you reallocate them to,
The operating
so
departments.
you are paying for,
You are in some instances, but the enterprise funds are only charged based on the methodology by user type, right? So if you have if in this case, right, using communications operations, if you have a service delivery in that enterprise fund that relates to that service overhead, you would see that flow through. But in the case of, let's say, Uplands, Public Works Maintenance and Operations, you're not going to get a charge in the ISF in that category. It's going to pertain to
okay,
safety
I'll sit down and
functions.
talk with you guys.
Yeah, yeah,
because
it's,
I'm very confused right now.
yeah, the ISF is very particular. The plan is very detailed.
Okay,
The
I don't want to
assumption-
belabor it
yeah,
here.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a newbie, so.
Yeah, no, it's worth going through, though. I'll walk you through it.
This is just an explanation and a walkthrough on just the $5,061,954 delta. This is the last year overhead cost in the general fund, as we were talking, $13 million showing this year versus the 8.7. We wanted just to kind of just briefly explain, and as we've talked about it already, some of the drivers that led to that. We gave you a small example here, just in Emergency Communications ISF, how it was being reported in various divisions. So we were approximately capturing about $45,000 in overhead costs at the time last year. Maximus came in along with our auditing side to figure out the best practice of how to carry indirect costs, and this was the result of it. Last year, in the report from Maximus and the recommendations, it was noted that this change would actually come to fruition this year, and so now we're executing that actual change as requested and reviewed by our consultant. And so $2.5 million now is being, covered, right, in 22-23. And because the general fund pretty much pays for almost 80% of the ISF costs anyways, there's your increase in $5 million. And you'll see the inverse of a $3.6 million out and payment by the general fund, which is really only a net of $1.4 million. Some of the other costs that I may note why you'll see this driver, there's only two really big reasons you'll ever see major shifts in ISF. One is a calculation methodology change, which occurred this year. The other is your natural ebbs and flows of personnel and other ISF costs, raw material cost increase, right? The cost to do business increases. This year, you specifically had a calculation methodology. This is your main component driver of ISF charges, along with the traditional inflation cost of raw materials and everything that flows through ISF and costs. So just wanted to explain the drivers. We should go back to balance neutral again. Remember, we're still recovering from COVID and our personnel, bringing back all our personnel that was done and having seen those reports through ISF.
And if you could, Wendy, just pause. I think this is worth noting. If you could go back to the last slide.
Yes, sir.
There's a component that's happening here pre-COVID, right? We have fully flushed operating departments at all levels: service delivery, administrative services, HR, financial services, et cetera, right? Fully funded departments. You start cutting those departments. Actual expenditures in those departments takes a couple of years to matriculate through the ISF. So what you're now seeing is, if you look at the 21-22 actuals, which drove the original 23-24 adopted budget, or last year's mid-year, versus this year's mid-year, which are based on the 22-23 actuals, in many cases, you're going to see increased expenditure because we're now pulling out of COVID and we're restoring funding in a lot of those operating departments. So some of the adjustment is methodology oriented. Some of the adjustment is us now seeing increased actual expenditures across the board post-COVID finally start to matriculate through. Last year's decline was a reflection of savings in those areas. We're now beginning to return to more normalcy in that total expense.
And if I could drive a little bit further the point, I'm giving you some of the other side, aside from the calculation of funds increasing, your major funds that increase that you'll see reflected graphically here as well are vehicle and information technology replacement. These are reflecting your actual cost increases for vehicles, technology, and personnel costs. The inverse of that is your repairs and maintenance have gone down because you are investing into your infrastructure, new laptops, right? You don't need to repair and maintenance. So it is happening and balancing out on the inverse with that. Funds decreasing, liability insurance, we have a 5-year kind of methodology to that. For claims, we're smoothing out. We got a reduction in claims, and then we're reducing those costs year over year. Emergency communications, as I noted, reflect one other factor, which is lower utility and maintenance contract costs, and this is consistent with the utility cost going down in 21-22. So again, the most important driver of ISF is that all these markers and breakers are happening and showing and reflecting in each individual plan as they come through. The funds just.
Can I just say one thing? Bravo. Because we've been waiting, Councilmember Ehrenheim and I have been talking about this for 7 years. The black box of ISF has finally been revealed. We've been waiting for this detail for a really long time. So thank you both for getting this for us.
Took a former Marine to do it.
I literally
We should get more Marines in.
I literally commented to him, this is something we've been looking for years.
Yeah.
And this is part of the black box that we're looking at here is something that's never been talked about, never been shown. And thank you.
Yeah, and there actually are some positives in this. I mean, as Wendy mentioned, the reduction in liability insurance costs and building occupancy, a reflection of actual savings in those operations. Now, I don't want to promise that indefinitely we're going to see these things grow over time by inflation, but these are in some instances positive reductions for the time being. So.
And they're big ticket items too.
And they are very big ticket items.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And then finally, just as a note, funds with minimal under 5% change, but of course, for transparency purposes, wanted to note was your sewer and major facilities repair. There's really no significant change in that cost. I wanted to give you again, just a reflection of the years as well. And because, this year reflected, if we only adjusted to last year and review it with that's 11%, right, overall plans. However, year over year with everything that's going on and to true it up, your smoothing has been a 3.1 average over the last 10 years of ISF smoothing out, growing every year based on inflation and natural costs. So it's not this exuberant normally, and traditionally the city has received just last year and this year's, and it's always a big old hike. But the way the city has gone traditionally now, I look back 10 years, a smooth over the top 5 years has been 3.1% average growth over that time frame. So it's a steady and industry growth, with inflation and the way that is. So it was a good marker just to know. It was just kind of something I nerded out to just to give you that information of where we lay as far as the industry goes with ISF and prices and raw material and things of that nature. Sorry, I'm going to skip this slide since I already did it. And this is the review of the funds increasing and decreasing that I just went through. This slide for you is just the decision package included in mid-year, four recommended decision packages. This is the outline to them, as you are probably well versed now. Staffing reorg and information technology, no net increase. Sewer fund rate adjustment as traditional, no net increase there. And then the legal cost for the general fund, $175K impact. And then user pay, classes for community services, no net impact there. Those are the four decision packages with everything detailed out for you, as well as the funds having the no net
Maybe
impact.
just spend a little bit of time on that, Wendy. So just starting with the staffing organization and IT, that's really something Mike has been working hard to identify. You might recall we did the organizational assessment about a year ago. Mike's been looking through that, assessing department needs as we go through recruitments, and has identified benefit in reclassifying our IT supervisor position to a slightly lower level, and then using that savings coupled with some part-time funding that we have that's unallocated to create another lower level position. So we actually add a resource at no cost to the city, to the department, to help us with our sort of myriad of technological installations. We think in the long run, that'll serve our needs and be far more contemporary in practice. Sewer fund rate adjustment is it is actually not sewer fund. I think that's solid waste fund rate adjustment is to address our traditional Athens services contract adjustments to pick up households that have been added to the rolls since the start of the budget. Very small change there. No cost to the general fund. The $175,000 is to continue to carry our work out as it pertains to the AES site for the balance of the fiscal year. And then, as mentioned, the user pay classes is to reflect the uptick in registration in that area. We're seeing growth in most of our contract classes year over year. Again, not a general fund impact, as it's covered by
Just to
user
flip
fees.
some, the only thing you're asking for us that's an impact.
Is really the
to budget is
175.
And we have like 500K.
And that's, well, the 500K actually assumes the 175 expenditures.
does?
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's with
So
the
that's
five.
after
Yeah.
we-
You'll see that here in the summary
Okay.
slide, yeah.
And that's specifically for the bankruptcy case.
Yeah, I'm not advocating we don't allocate that.
Just wanted to let you be clear.
All right, next slide, Wendy, go ahead. Yeah, so net, this is where we finish. We start the estimated fund balance with some carryover appropriations that reflect mid-year timing. It's really zero, but that's a reflection of booking, not an issue there. Adjustments to revenue, adjustments to expenditures, which include all of those ISF distributions, as well as the decision packages, leaves us with a net $586,000. I am not recommending we allocate or spend any of that money at this time. As you all know, we have a number of projects on the books that are backlogged. We're trying to work through them. We don't need the additional, I'm not sure we could get to it in the next couple of months of the fiscal year anyway. I'd rather see this flow through your budget conversation in May and June and be appropriated at that time. So that's our recommendation. I think that's covers the last slide. Oh, we should talk a little bit about budget calendar. Next slide, please, Wendy. So here we are today covering mid-year. We'll be immediately turning our attention towards budget preparation. We have several meetings this month. Typically in April, I'll go visit the commissions, seek input from them on the preparation of the budget. You might recall there was a time we didn't talk to them or we talked to them after the fact. I've noticed over the last couple of years, the commissions have really appreciated this sort of opportunity to present before we deliver the document to you. So it's a busy April, as you can see. Wendy may help me out with a few of these. And then we'll be delivering the budget to you in the middle of May. We'll have our first receive and file discussion on the budget on the 21st. It won't be really a substantive debate or hearing night, but more of a receive and file to understand what's in it. We'll have our first hearing on the 4th, followed by our second hearing on the 11th, which will be capital focused. We'll have our Budget and Finance Commission review on the delivered document, as well as the Harbor Commission review also that week. Planning Commission will evaluate for general plan consistency, and then we will have hopefully our final budget hearing and adoption night on June 18th. So very busy couple of months, very quickly, a lot of work ahead. And we do have an extra Tuesday in June if we need it. I'm certainly hopeful we won't. We've been pretty well on schedule of late. And it really, the heavy work begins in April as we start seeking input from the various commissions.
So let me understand this. In May 16th, you anticipate delivering the budget. It's not going to be at a council meeting. We're not going to
You'll get it delivered to you, both electronically and physically, and then the first public receive and file of that document will occur on the 21st.
But no discussion.
It's not really for discussion, but it is a discussion item. And typically we schedule it as a public hearing for the record, but we're not encouraging sort of public hearing level
So the
discourse.
4th is when you first expect us
Exactly.
to
And typically you all just want to kind of
opine on.
synthesize it, take a few weeks to go through it, and then really start the harder Q&A. The May 21st item or night is a good night for BRRs, kind of direction on additional information or supplement. So, although you've given us a lot of BRRs already.
Give you BRR.
I'm sorry, what?
To,
You give us BRRs that maybe we haven't already contemplated, right? So you say,
but we're
hey,
not reviewing BRRs.
not necessarily. We won't have BRRs in the document that night. Your first deliverable on BRRs will be the first meeting in June.
Okay. And we'll have some time to review that before the meeting.
It'll go in the packet that goes out
BRRs.
in the preceding, yeah. So you get the 4 days.
Oh, thanks.
Now,
That might not be all of them.
but then you'll get them each week, and then, so you'll have some of them for longer before you make your final decision. Yeah.
If I may, City Manager, just on the receive and file, I just want to remind everybody we have deployed ClearGov, so it'll be interesting to see a new budget book being processed in real time, which was not the case last year, and it was interesting. So that is going forward, and we've seen preliminary on the budget book, and let me tell you, we're pretty excited about it.
Might help us with a few things.
You'll track the changes or like the motion
Live, absolutely, and all graphical representation of the 400 pages. Go and have,
Don't need me
yeah,
in there,
it's
yeah.
happening. I've already seen the
excited
mock-up.
about this,
We're
but
excited, but
A little nervous too.
Yeah.
A little nervous too.
Sell tickets for that.
in case it doesn't happen, we got the chisel and stone ready.
You can sell tickets for raising $5 million.
Start the bake sale.
Betting, 5.2.
Judging what the audience looks like, I don't think what's going to happen.
You never know. This could be.
So that's our upcoming calendar. Any questions on that slide?
I'd love a copy of these.
Yeah, we'll circulate this PowerPoint when you're done. This PowerPoint in particular, not the first one. And then last slide, I think, is just our recommendation tonight. Receive and file the report and then approve the proposed adjustments and adopt by 4/5 vote the resolution that would codify those changes.
Okay. I have one comment. This is the first midterm I've been going through. I sat down with Wendy. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I appreciate that. The reports were a little, especially that first report was a little confusing because to me, it mixes apples and oranges. I understand that's the way the state requires it. It would help, at least me, from having come from the commercial community and the federal government, that when you're doing the other two, which were far more useful, to put the expenditures year to date and then the projected.
Yeah.
Because right now you're just doing what your original projection and your current projection, but we don't know what's spent to date.
Yeah, we're that backup material we've evaluated. We've only flagged for you changes that we think need to be made. Otherwise, all things are remaining assumed to be the same.
No, but it would help to see
the
actual expenditures to date, because it took me a while to understand what we were looking at.
Yeah.
And it gives us an indication of, are we behind spending and there's a lot to go, or are we really spent out and we're going to trickle it the rest of the year, right? For each of the different areas. And from what I understand from talking with Wendy, that's already in that spreadsheet. It's just where you cut it off to send it to us, right?
That's correct, sir. That's how we get the analysis, and it was just
If
found to
there's
be a
not-
little bit more efficient.
It's not
you
a
know?
problem.
It's not. It's just a lot more paper, and we stay focused on. Yeah, no, we can create that for you. We give those reports regularly to the Budget Finance Commission now. That's something we've implemented in the last year. We do quarterly projection reports and quarterly revenue and expenditure spends to date. So they're reviewing that as under your direction there. So we're trying to get that information out. We're just trying to keep you focused on what's critical here tonight. I know that we can certainly provide that in the future.
Understanding is better. Councilmember Lowenstein.
Yeah, just a brief question. Nice job, thank you. Where are we at with negotiations or discussions about the Marine Avenue Hotel TOT?
Well, we're evaluating their documents. We've been in very close contact with them. They produce a lot of records for us. We're doing cross-checks with that. In fact, I think we're pretty well complete with that this week. There's a potential consultant that we've been tipped off to by Councilmember Barrett that might help provide some third-party review. We're going to pull them in to perhaps do a free consult, evaluate what's said, and then if there's any concern raised, I think, by that party, we might contract with them to do a little bit deeper dive for us, do a bit of a forensic accounting to verify some of the expenses. I will say Marine, they've been very cooperative in producing records for us and where the spending comes from their perspective. But we're continuing to cross-reference that against what we think to be their contractual obligations. So the good news is, while the last few years have been very challenging with not being able to see any revenue from that site, the authority-funded reserve is on an upward trajectory. It is climbing and should be at that $3 million level here in the next several months, and we should see revenue accrue to the general fund next fiscal year. So that's a positive, but that's not to alleviate any of our retrospective work and to look back on kind of how they spent that money. Was it applicable and appropriate? But we are doing a very deep dive. Stephanie and Wendy in particular spent a lot of time on it, and I think it might help to bring somebody else in to do a little bit of checking for us as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Narenheim.
Thank you. So I have a couple questions here. We bought the new fire engine out of this budget. How does the lifespan affect? Because we did 2 fire engines. We won 3 years, won 4 years. We bought early. We were expecting them to go to 25 years. They didn't make it. Rest in peace for those suckers. And how does that affect and if we were to modify our fire engine policy, lifespan policy to 20 years instead of 25, how does that affect our internal service funds and what we currently did?
Yeah, you've kind of done that. With the advanced purchase, you've sort of accelerated the amortization schedule. So for at least those two engines and the latter as well, I think we've accelerated with the change in the policy. How that flows through the ISF is, rather than amortizing that expense over 25 years, as you pointed, we're now advertising it over the shortened period of time, which was 17 or 18. And that will grow the annual allocation and the drawdown against that annual allocation. And as that actual expense catches up year over year, you'll see that increase flow through the ISF. So it'll take a few years, but those accelerated purchases have in effect already increased the amortized cost that will be allocated to that unit number.
What if we were to change the lifespan of those engines, all of our engines, 20 years?
In general. The funding rate, yeah, it would depend on how many affected pieces of equipment we have.
It would be 4, 6.
And in that case, instead of setting aside hypothetically what was previously maybe $40,000 a year for each of those apparatus, maybe it goes up to $60,000. So you see a $20,000 annualized delta across 4 vehicles or 5 vehicles for an additional $100,000 a year expense. And then through the ISF, after that actual change is realized, you'll see that in the department's allocation.
Okay. I noticed in here you put out $900,000 of no revenue for the fire department for paramedic fees.
Yeah, that's a reduction in expectation.
The expectation was we were going to get 1.1 million, so we're expecting $200,000 of revenue?
Well, there was 925 specific to the new EMS fee. We had $180,000 already that we were collecting for other fees for service. So we're still getting that. Yeah, fire inspection fees.
Right, that's different. That was,
So the EMS fee was 925, I think, was the budgeted amount, but that we've adjusted down based on the delayed implementation.
But we didn't expect to collect the full amount this year.
We didn't, but we expected to collect
75%
a big chunk of it.
Right, we're not getting any of it.
And thus far, we've got none. But if we do implement here in the next month, we will hopefully see some of that.
Long process before we get there.
Yeah. And we'll probably make an adjustment to the annual appropriation going into the budget. We'll probably go down from 925 to 600 or something more realistic based on what we now know of the fee.
So the budget amendments that we passed in September, there were 3 for the fire department and, man, I could look at it. You have it in here. Or is it pay? It doesn't matter. How are those going to flow? Are those into the mid-year budget now, flowing in? You have those taking advantage,
You've already approved those by 4/5 vote, so they're already incorporated into the document. Yeah.
Right, but it wouldn't be in our adopted, it would be in our mid-year, but we don't update our mid-year budget.
To your point, yes. So the councilman's questions about when does that expenditure change get reflected in the documents that are available to the community. I think they're immediately available in our OpenGov.
In our OpenGov, yes.
They are available in OpenGov. When you go to the adopted published book, the adopted budget book, you'll see the summary of all of your approved changes, but we do not update the department operating tables by line item. Those still reflect the proposed allocations. You'll see those changes reflected in next year's proposed budget.
That's correct.
Okay.
Although that is something we might be able to implement next year with this new fancy budget publishing tool, so.
Yeah, let's not sell that too much yet.
Yeah, I don't want to get too excited, but.
We got $5 million to raise. All right, so I was looking at the fire department budget on what we approved, what was proposed to us, which was, in overtime, it was $300,000. I'll get the exact number actually, because I.
350 or something, yeah, 382 or whatever it was, yeah.
But the problem is that I see, let me see here, fire. Oh, budget, I go wrong folder, sorry, budget. In the current budget that is adopted, we have in here $500,000 of overtime.
There was an increase, you might remember, there was an adjustment under, what is it, BRR?
BRR number 1.
We did a slight modification of that amount from 352 to, we added 160,000.
1A?
in BRR, I think 1A or 1B, I forget. It's our corrections and adjustments, BRR.
Does that also include then overtime for special events going from 6,000 to 100,000?
Yes.
Yes,
Does that also include vacation, holiday, CalPERS, PERSable going from
Correct. Yep.
yes.
Yep.
to 135?
All of those
Yes.
corrections
Your
in BR1.
overtime, special events, PERSable.
Right, so that was the increase of $355,000.
Yep.
The Citygate report talked about a fire department did not reflect approximately $305,000 of unspecified anticipated expenditures which had been approved during the initial budget process. What is the $305,000?
I think it's BR1A. I think,
That doesn't, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But the overtime is $355,000.
so we'll have to look at that, but I think that's the delta. I think the first report that they got didn't have.
The 324, yeah.
Didn't have that 1A correction in it. They got an original version of the published budget as opposed to
That
the
is correct.
adopted. So
That
then
is
they
correct.
made that change.
Mhm.
After they
We
flagged
talked
that
about
issue.
it with Andy, and at the time they did that correction, BRR1, they hadn't factored it, so I explained it to them, and then they factored it in after, so.
I believe, let's see here, self-insurance fund went from $9.1 million. The self-insurance fund beginning balance reflects a positive cash balance of $9.1 million, which I believe is up from 7 million.
Yes.
Why do we have an increase there for 2 million?
Our pension liability reduced with the pension payment actually reflecting in the ACFR this year. So pension and your self-insurance fund is reported with net liabilities inclusive, and we always pull them out. Now that's reduced, so we don't have that expense reporting. So your expense is reduced so that there's more cash available. In essence, we pull that out.
And
that's-
claims remained relatively flat in this ISF update, so it didn't further adjust the fund balance downward. So,
And the self-insurance program, you just talked about, go back from the very beginning, the PERSable, not the
pension. Yes.
obligation that we paid off
Yes.
affects this.
Yes, your liabilities were to reduce because this year was the year that actual expense, although the payment was made, the actual liabilities were reduced on the books in your audit. So
some of those fund balances include our OPEB actuarials and forecasting, so that got adjusted downward, which increased our fund balance calculation.
internal funds, the way they're reported from a balance sheet perspective, they report it in, we always extract it out. And that's what we adjusted it because that pension liability went down.
Got it.
Yes.
And HDL, they were correctly identifying our sales tax revenue and real estate revenue that we had coming in?
Yeah, we've been pretty confident about the property tax adjustment for quite some time. Nicole's was on that early. We have quarterly meetings with HDL on our sales tax updates. They revise our budgeted forecast at each of those quarterly updates. This reflects their most recent revision. It fluctuates a couple of percent virtually every get together. But this is real time of data as we've got in that respect.
Here's the other part of the self-insurance program. Current cash balance is 9.1 million, reduced liability for future work compensation and liability claims of 20.1 million. So that's a reduced number.
It's a reduced number. We're actually trending better there.
Is that also because we've paid off or settled claims?
It's two things. We're working claims harder internally in terms of how we're processing them when we're processing folks for IDR retirement. We also, in the police and fire, we have a younger workforce today than we had 10 years ago. So we're at that phase where we're seeing fewer current claims. Now, eventually, as the workforce ages, we'll see that likely return.
As per the audit report, when you were talking about Matrix, that has now been implemented for the Emergency Communications Fund.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What else? I just had something. One sec. There was something else I wanted to ask on the fees. It'd be nice to get HDL to see able to sit down with them sometime and see what the sales tax figures are around the city. Do they have groupings in the areas from the
I
city?
could see, if you want, you and I can sit down and give you their real-time reports. They're pretty easy to follow. I could walk you through them.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. I talked to the city manager earlier today regarding email request I had for you regarding the ability to see our actual budget that we post, the reason I asked for the actual budget that we post is we did a lot of amendments up here for the live fire stuff, changing things. But those don't actually get reflected in the adopted budget.
In the published adopted budget.
Published adopted budget.
PDF version.
Yeah. So what I'd like to see moving forward is the adopted budget reflecting those changes so we can more accurately and quickly understand what the changes are.
And just for the full council and the community, what you mean is we reflect the motion in a letter format that clearly
Found in the
describes all of the adopted changes that you make. So that's summarized for you. What Councilman Nareheim is bringing up is we don't then take those changes and look at the line item details by operating department and make the adjustment to the contracts amount or the personnel budget or whatever we're doing. So that gets adjusted electronically in Munis once we post all of your directed changes, but we don't republish the book with that as a separate document. We might, like I said, with this new publishing tool, we might be able to do that in the future.
Well, we already, I mean, what happens is the adopted budget always stays stagnant to, document and memorialize that you adopted this budget clean and virgin, right, as it is. Then we have a column that is the revision, which encompasses all the budget amendments that have come through. So there, and it adjusts it, but
It's not in a published
But
format.
it's not in a published format.
Right. I mean, it's frustrating to say the least to be able to go and look at this and say, wait a second, I know I put in X dollars for these things and now I can't find, I got to find myself the budget motion and this and that. It's just very frustrating. But I am glad to hear the OpenGov portal. I got to go jump on that and then see, because I talked about that earlier today. Should be in there. That is huge for the reflection.
And like I said, I think we'll try to, if we can with this new tool, we'll try to publish an adopted version of that line item detail next year if we can. We should have a little more bandwidth to do that.
Okay, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nils. I don't have anybody else. Okay, anyone from the public? Public Safety Commission, right?
And that's so critical. That's the only point I have. So, Austin Carmichael, Commissioner Carmichael, District 5. Not many of you know this, but I'm second oldest of 11. And one of the things that I'm super excited that my mother did was not duplicate any names. Unfortunately, our commissions suffer so there's the Public Art Commission, there's the Public Work Commission, but on your list, I don't see the Public Safety Commission.
It should, if it's not on there, we don't have a confirmed date.
We can't go back and forth, so.
Yeah. We're not going back and forth.
I don't see a timer, so you're good.
I'm real good.
You'll be there. You'll be there.
When I think about that extra Tuesday that I heard that the city manager had in order to do the, I was thinking might be a need to switch that to a Monday, the third Monday. That would be helpful. Thanks so much, y'all. Great.
Thank you.
There goes
Anyone
my
else
dinner
from the
plans.
public? Anybody online?
We do not have any hands raised, and there are no e-comments for this item.
Okay, can I get a motion from the,
Motion to receive and file the mid-year budget report and approve the proposed budget adjustments and adopt by fourth vote resolution number CC-2404-022.
and we need a 4 out of 5. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
And we need a 4 out of 5, correct?
We do.
Well, in
Okay,
that case.
Councilmember Narenheim.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowenstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Kalajirovic.
Aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Barron.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thanks, Wendy. Good job on this. Really appreciate it. And appreciate the time you spent with me late.
Anytime.
Mayor, if I may read the resolution?
Sure.
Adopt by four-fifths vote and by title only, resolution number CC-2404-002, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Redondo Beach, California, modifying the budget for fiscal year 2023-24. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, city manager items?
Just two. We are nearing our deadline for our submission for brand refresh, artists, proposals. It's next week, so get those in. I think we've got 44 artists that have submitted proposals thus far. Many of them have submitted more than one, so we have, I think, quite a few to look at. Hopefully, we'll receive more over the next week. I did want to also report back on strategic planning coordination. I'll be talking to you all offline. Our primary consultant, Eric Douglas, isn't available at the end of April. He does have an associate available. Eric is available on May 23rd, which would be the next opportunity for us to kick this around. So I'll talk to you a little bit offline to see how we feel about timing and what your schedules look like. But if we want Eric, it's going to be difficult to have that occur in April. So we may have to contemplate using one of his associates. They're all good. They're all very good facilitators, but I have enjoyed Eric's.
Yeah, I'm just concerned with pushing it into budget season.
I wanted to, it couldn't be during the budget preparation. We'd have to do it immediately after
Yeah,
and
and then
before
that's-
you start the hearing process.
late.
So it'll be tight. I mean, it's busy here on out for the next couple of months. And it's under all circumstances. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now on to, any public comments on
No, we have no public comments.
anybody in the audience? Okay, no council? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't bring up any council discussion on those two items. Okay, so we're jumping to mayor and council items. I had one item on there. I sent out Lisa Fox application.
Wait, recur. Referral. That's the end. Never mind.
Yeah, with P1 first, then referral.
Yeah, sorry.
P1, come on, give me a break here.
We're moving everything around.
P1 followed F1, followed N1.
So I sent out to you the application by Lisa Fox to replace my old position. That was in government, someone with government experience. And so Lisa had that, plus she's
It's a great choice.
a voter, so.
Motion approved.
I'll make a motion to approve the mayor's recommendation to the Harbor
You already
Commission.
did.
Jane did, just did.
Oh, second that, sorry.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Let's move it on.
No discussion? Any public input on that?
No one on Zoom and no e-comments for this item.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Go-
did
go
you-
for- No. Keep going.
Why are you pointing down there?
I'll let you finish. Go. Vote.
Okay, I'm calling the vote. All for it?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
2 minutes and 33 seconds. It must be
That's a record.
Referrals in.
That's a record. Okay, so now we have referrals to staff. So, Councilmember Narenheim.
So we got an email, I think, to all of us. And that is the NRBBA having a SpringFest issue regarding business license for all of the businesses that are having going there. I just want to let the entire council know I've been dealing with this exact issue for all the farmers markets in my districts, as well as the upcoming June Summerfest. And the issue is there's a new interpretation requiring all the businesses that are set up for one day or a few hours or one day a week for farmers market to get a business license. And especially in Riviera Village, it's not just business license now, you have to be part of Riviera business. So I'd like to make a motion to update our ordinance to allow for a waiver for special events such as farmers markets and events such as SpringFest and what do you call it?
Discussion.
Discussion and possible, we'll do plan possible action for SpringFest. We'll need it quickly. SpringFest and farmers markets, other special events
How
in the city.
about including daily business licenses for businesses?
Well, maybe what we do is bring back discussion, reviewing our Muni code requirements and perhaps ways to create more flexibility in that process. The code is rigid in this regard.
I'll second that.
And in the meantime, I'll tell you, we're looking at ways to try to address the special event issue that's been raised, because this isn't something that we've had to do in the past. So we're trying to be creative here as it pertains to that, but we'll bring you back a discussion item on this subject.
It would be good if we could get for that report, like any waivers that have been granted in the past, so we can treat everybody the same. And I don't know what waivers have been granted historically or being granted now, so.
Friendly amendment to include those waivers in the
So we don't have to repeat this multiple times.
Yeah, which waivers again? Sorry.
Just any waivers, yeah, from business
Or
license.
in effect, creating a go-forward waiver program and reflecting what waivers perhaps have been historically. granted.
Exactly, because if historically they've been granted for different entities, it'd be good to, whether the council wants to do it, whether the city manager can do it, it'd be good to have that in place.
Okay.
But I don't know which ones are out there.
But daily businesses licenses.
Same, yeah,
will
that
also be-
flexibility would be good. I mean, I've got a lot of ideas on this.
Second, I
Staff
think
been
that-
researching this issue. We want to make changes to the code.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
And when can we get this back by? This is kind of important.
Do we want to have a fourth meeting in April? Yes, no?
I'm not sure.
I mean, if we only have
Meeting Cancun. Oh, you got me a meeting.
Not for that.
23rd, it'd
Otherwise,
be
it's
the
3 weeks off.
23rd.
I haven't booked it. I haven't booked it yet.
Going in the budget.
We're gonna need it, not going, yeah.
If we don't do,
We're going to have strategic.
if we don't do strat plan, it would be good for us to have a fourth meeting in April. We have a lot of issues in April that we need to address. And we're going to have a hell of a time doing it on the 16th.
I'm open.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So
So
we're talking about a strategic plan meeting and this?
No.
No, it'd be, I think we would have to probably push strat plan and that.
We could do a strategic plan a different night in May, other than Tuesday.
That's what we would have to do.
It's tough with all the.
It's going to be a challenge. I mean, it's going to be, or we just wait till the end of May, or we push strat plan into
don't
July.
like that.
We could do that
Let's
too.
do a fourth meeting.
Let's talk about it offline.
All right, so it sounds like we're good on the 23rd. So if
motion
we're,
and a
if we're
second.
good, if we're willing to have a meeting on the 23rd, we can have the business license discussion on the 23rd.
Motion and a second. Can I get?
Is that enough time for Springfest, given that they are on the?
I think we're going to have to do something for Springfest. I'm going to have to figure something out for Springfest.
End of the month.
So,
25th. No, they,
well, maybe we can bring something back specific for Springfest next week.
That was.
Yeah, maybe we do a resolution.
So I'll amend my motion, further amend,
Yeah.
to have something come back next week for
Springfest.
Springfest to exempt special waiver.
Councilmember Barron?
Thank you, Mayor. On the waiver and exemption for the business license, Mr. City Manager, what is the business license cost that would be at issue? What is the fee?
It's almost $500.
And do we currently have a daily fee rate?
No, that's the problem. The code is, it's kind of a one-size-fits-all fee. What we ought to, well, I don't want to talk
And-
about the recommendations,
And
but
would this discussion include expedited processing time? So if somebody drops in, hey, I'm going to be at Springfest next week, that we can,
yeah, I think turnaround's okay now, but yes, we
Turnaround?
can talk about turnaround as part of that
is
discussion.
it practical? Okay. Can it be done app-based? Will that be part of the discussion? Or- I'm just,
Yeah, we're having a discussion.
And and other programmatic changes.
All right, 3 things we're getting in this.
Motion
Yeah,
and a
let's go.
second.
Yeah, for 3 items.
Any other discussion? Okay, let's take a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous. Anything else?
Following up on my many other requests, what is the motion? I made a motion regarding, let's see here,
If it was a knife, it would have been better.
trees in the, updating our tree ordinance. This was asked for, passed back in August, and updating to make sure that trees in the parkway, construction, they don't die within 2 years. We have lots of houses being built now. This was made back in August last year. And where are we with that and how you coming back?
Yeah, let me find out. Not sure.
Okay.
On the spot.
Riviera Village with the alleged notary services, delete the notary allowance for no office space on ground floor level. That was made and that's supposed to come back in September.
Yep. Get that on the to-do here. That's, community development's a little underwater right now. We get that.
I could write the fix and then let's see here. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Councilmember Lake?
Moratorium on co-living and
Too late.
we sent that to the planning commission, moratorium or updating or creating co-living ordinance.
Ordinance, yes. I think that is somewhere on the work calendar. I'm not exactly sure where planning commission, but that is the next stop.
Okay. All right, that's it. We're good. Final answer.
You sure?
Final answer.
Okay.
I'm not saying
Well,
it.
just-
Mic off.
Just one thing.
Not saying.
Okay.
Okay,
Stay on target.
just one thing. I'd like us to discuss any type of celebrations for Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
Yeah. We talked about it last year. We didn't have any time to plan it. So,
Any date in mind?
what's that?
19.
In July?
July would be perfect. I would say
July.
sooner than later, but like
Okay.
mid-April.
Maybe we do it on the 23rd.
On the 23rd, then that's fine. If we're going to do the 23rd, then yeah.
They'll just be all queue items on the 23rd.
That's why we need the fourth meeting.
Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
None for me, thank you.
Sure. We have, all right, so this is just a question about, I didn't pull the last strategic planning update, but we had made a referral about teen activities, I believe, right? So that was a strategic planning item. Have we had any kind of feedback on that item?
You haven't had any feedback. Staff has done some evaluating of the teen center and what changes would be needed there to update it and
I'd like to make a referral for, and this isn't a rush, maybe August after budget, for an update on what teen centers are operating in the city, what activities are being offered, what services, whatever, how are we using our teen centers? And we can include in there, because it's a community services thing, whatever happened with the senior meals that were supposed to occur at Perry Park.
yeah, they're working on a contract. It's coming. Yeah.
Okay, so we didn't hear back on that, so the status of that.
Yeah.
I'm totally down with that. I think it's
And discussion and possible action, because people approach me about teaching, for example, volleyball in the park or something like that, and providing programs, but
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to provide direction to pursue stuff like that. So is there a second for that?
Second.
All right.
Any discussion? All four?
Aye.
I thought we already funded that program.
You funded it. What was missing was a contract. Manhattan, we were going to partner with Manhattan. They pulled out of that vendor. That contract went away. So we're working through another agreement to
We
get that
funded
going.
it, but it just didn't.
Yeah.
And then for Mental Health Awareness Month of May, I would like to have referred discussion on possibly decriminalizing psilocybin mushrooms in the city of Redondo Beach, like other cities have.
No.
I will second that, because our state actually has, I believe the governor just signed a bill from our friend Senator Wiener. I believe he says signed it. I'll have to get an update on that, but I believe Oregon and Texas have done it, and I believe there was a bill that was run last year which didn't pass. I believe a new one did pass this year. Maybe it did pass, one of the two. But it allows delivery for psilocybin.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
No.
one no for you. Anything else?
Timeframe?
And sometime in May, maybe, and there's a group that we can invite.
How about you email him?
Yes, I'll email you offline, the group that we can invite. That's it.
Councilmember Mayor.
None.
Okay, I do have one that I'd like, since I can't vote, I would like you guys to support. Having gone through and trying to fill all the open positions on the commissions, there's several, they're not necessarily commissions, but the, what do you call them, the appeal boards. And there are, and commissions, there's a lot of unfilled slots, and we're not getting applicants for them. So I was actually shocked going through the number of commissions and appeal boards we have. I would like for you guys to vote for a referral for myself and the city manager to come back with a recommendation on a restructuring of the commissions to reduce overlap and to address those commissions and boards that are not staffed.
So moved.
I'll second that for sure. I thought for some reason we were adding this on the strategic plan to get rid of.
Well, remember we had the Public Works and Sustainability Commission discussion, and then we talked about whether or not to add one or to co-locate it, which we ended up co-locating. There was a lot of research that showed how many commissions we have versus kind of peers. But that, it was specific to that issue. This would be, I think, a more comprehensive look at meeting volumes, a number of commissions, redundancies, perhaps combining
More
some of the
efficient and
scopes.
applying our volunteers better.
We're having a hard time filling them. I mean, and this wasn't just the recent patch. I know Mayor Brand had the
Mayor
problem too.
Brand complained about it.
Yeah,
too,
no,
so.
it's an issue. Yeah.
So we got a motion and a second. I'm going to call the,
Aye.
Aye.
okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you for that support. Any member of the public want to address anything we just discussed?
We didn't discuss anything, we just made referrals.
Oh, so we don't normally do that?
There's
Sorry.
There's no.
What the heck, you're down here.
I fly to for Juneteenth parade, and then I come back because there's nothing in all of California.
Whoa, 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 whoa. I went to,
Hold on,
No
no back and
discussion.
forth.
No, just,
Which, thank you very much for that. I can keep offline now. Take care.
hey, thanks. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
I went to Supervisor Mitchell's.
Yeah, Manhattan Beach.
All right. I'll
Okay.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All four?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.